Hello and a very good morning. It's 7 o'clock. This is Mornings with Jones and Melbourne. I'm Anna.
And I'm Kamali. Thanks for starting your day with us. Here's how we're looking.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says Israel will hold off attacks on Iranian gas fields after a request from Donald Trump, and says the war will end a lot faster than people think.
Sound of strikes in Dubai overnight after an alert warning of potential missile threats. We'll be live from the region.
The father of a schoolgirl who died following a meningitis outbreak in Kent says the loss is immeasurable and calls for better protection for young people.
Also ahead, the scramble to book flights as the war sends airfares soaring. We're going to speak to the travel expert, Simon Calder.
Plus, we join the new drone squad launched as part of the government's new crackdown on waste criminals. Hello, very good morning. Thanks for joining us. Israel has attacked Iran again after Benjamin Netanyahu said, at the request of Donald Trump, he'd hold off further strikes on Iran's South Pars gas field. He also said the war will end a lot faster than people think.
Well, Iran has responded, hitting Bahrain, Kuwait and the UAE. And this morning, Tehran insisted it's still building missiles. We'll have more on what the Israeli PM and the US President had to say in just a moment. But first, here's our international affairs editor, Dominic Waghorn, who's been speaking to a spokesperson for the Iranian Foreign Ministry in Tehran.
You cannot expect a country that is under military aggression to exercise restraint. You have to direct your call to those aggressors. They started this aggression. They have to stop.
It sounds, though, to people listening, therefore, that Iran is prepared to escalate at whatever the cost. And we've heard from your colleagues saying this is not the time for diplomacy. This is the time to defend Iran. But I think people listening are desperate to hear there's some kind of progress. Is there any kind of olive branch you can offer to your enemies to say there is something you can talk about, a way out of this crisis before it engulfs the whole region and possibly further beyond?
Do you think it would be really realistic to offer olive branch to those who want to behead you? They are killing our elites. They are targeting our leaders. So we are facing a combination of acts of terrorism and acts of aggression and terrorism. And this is unprecedented. So this killing spree has to stop. They have killed so many people across Iran. So you cannot expect the country that is defending itself against this barbaric act of aggression to show olive branch to those who knows no boundary in targeting your country.
Let's cross live now to Dubai, and we can bring in our correspondent, Sally Lockwood, who's there. Morning to you, Sally. So Benjamin Netanyahu said that the war is going to end faster than people think. What's the reality there on the ground?
Yeah, it's very interesting to hear what Benjamin Netanyahu and Donald Trump have said about the timeline that they have in their heads as to when this war will end. But I think the impact for this region will be felt long after that. And, you know, we're feeling the effects once again this morning. We've had loud explosions heard of air defense blasts in the sky here in Dubai around 7 a.m. The sound of fast jets flying very low overhead and an emergency alert on our phones warning us of incoming missiles. Now, we've had confirmation from the Dubai media office that those missiles and drones were intercepted successfully, no damage and no injuries, which is great news because, of course, the UAE has been hit really hard in the last few weeks with this war. But they've done a really great job with protecting the country. That said, it's just something that now people have to worry about on a daily basis. But other Gulf countries have also been hit really hard. Bahrain and Kuwait and Saudi have all reported incoming attacks this morning. And in fact, Kuwait has confirmed that there's been damage from a drone strike on one of their major oil refineries. And of course, this is the real concern for this region, is that Iran now appears to be deliberately targeting Gulf energy infrastructure, which is a real escalation in this war. And it's interesting, actually, that the UAE president and Donald Trump held a phone call yesterday discussing this very issue of attacks on the UAE, and they've expedited an arms package, a military package to the UAE worth $8 billion, which is going to include F-16 fighter jet munitions, THAAD air defences and anti-drone systems, according to the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio. And that's, of course, because we're not clear how long this is all going to last. Donald Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu may say that this is going to wrap soon, but the reality is that the Gulf neighbours who live next door to Iran could suffer the consequences for far longer. And actually, the UN human rights chief has said that the attacks on major Gulf energy sites are entering a dangerous new phase of this war. And while Donald Trump said very clearly yesterday it's going to be over with pretty soon, the consequences for countries like the UAE and its Gulf neighbours could last far beyond that.
Yes, indeed, Sally. Thanks very much indeed. And it is really interesting, isn't it, Kamali? We've heard Netanyahu last night saying the war will end a lot faster than people think. We've also heard Donald Trump saying that it'll end soon as well. But it does appear that the two countries, US and Israel, have different objectives. In fact, Tulsi Gabbard, the US Director of National Intelligence, actually acknowledged that to a congressional hearing yesterday, saying their stated objectives are different. So I guess that begs the question of, will they decide at different times that they've fulfilled their aims, and what are the implications of that? Does one side stop? And then, as Sally was suggesting there, the repercussions could continue anyway with Iran carrying on its strikes.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Tulsi Gabbard's comments come a day after she confirmed that there was no imminent threat to the United States from Iran prior to this war being launched. So the reasoning as to why Donald Trump chose to go to war still being questioned by someone within his own national security apparatus. And as Sally said, the strikes on the region continue. The fact that the Iranians, after nearly coming into 3 weeks of war, have been able to continue to send missiles and drones around the region at targets tells you that despite, I think, over 8,000 targets being hit by the United States, the Iranians still have the ability to fire back, which means that the Strait of Hormuz is still very much under threat, which is why all of that traffic, that shipping traffic, is holed up there.
Yeah, and they've just said that they're continuing to produce them throughout this war.
Absolutely.
Well, do stay with us, because in the next half an hour we're going to actually be speaking to Mary Robinson, who's the former President of Ireland and former UN High Commissioner for Human Rights, about the war in Iran. Yeah.
Now, the government claims it's going to pay to clear up thousands of tonnes of illegally dumped waste in the north of England.
Well, fly tipping is a huge problem across the country, and one we've been following very closely for months.
Yeah, the Environment Agency, so they're determined to get on top of things, and as well as clearing up the mess, they'll be using a new drone squad to help spot illegal dumps. Dan Whitehead has this.
It is a sight that has become all too familiar. Hundreds of thousands of tonnes of illegally dumped waste. Sky News has reported on the scourge of waste sites across the country for more than a year. Now, a new government plan that it hopes will finally sort it.
It can be used very effectively for evidence gathering. The photographs we can take from the sky, it paints the picture of the significant level of impact that this has had on the countryside.
James is one of 33 new drone pilots recruited by the Environment Agency. Kit's being tested here at Hodes Wood in Kent, a 30,000-tonne illegal waste site that the EA has been clearing since last June. The tech is just one part of a series of new measures.
This 10-point plan includes buzzwords like fast intelligence handling. Essentially what it means is the EA wants to get in quicker and prevent situations like here at Hodes Wood. It's costing around £10 million to clear this up. They want to get to sites before they get too big, and that's been a really big frustration amongst members of the public who question why authorities don't act sooner.
Well, our own waste crime survey suggests that only 27% of waste crime is reported to the authorities, and we can't act on what we don't know about. So we are asking people to stand by us, report anything, even the slightest detail. It could be the piece of intelligence that helps us to act.
Why have some of the sites, like Epping, like Wigan, been able to take root before any action is taken?
This is a societal issue.
But the public for months and months have been calling, and there's no closure orders or bollards put in. So why is that? Is it resources? I mean, there's no blame, but you're stretched, I presume.
We try and use the resources the resources we have to have the most impact in the best way possible, and that's why that early intelligence is important to us, so we can be able to target our approach.
The EA says it closed around 700 illegal waste dumps last year, which may well have grown into huge sites like this. But it still costs the UK economy around £1 billion annually, a cost to taxpayers and legitimate waste companies struggling to survive.
It's very frustrating to see them doing what they should be doing, dealing with permits, paying for subsistence fees, paying for consultants, paying for professional advice, and then down the road we see what's happening at Hoadswood and Kidlington and Over and Wigan and Northwich, and apparently a blind eye is being turned to that while my clients are doing the right thing, so frustration doesn't begin to cover it.
News that the government will now pay to clear 48,000 tonnes of waste from 3 sites in the north of England is welcome. But organised criminal gangs continue to avoid millions in landfill tax. The EA wants the public to be its eyes and ears, while it uses the latest technology to try and stop them.
I'm pleased to say that Dan joins us now from Wigan this morning. Dan, great to have you with us. Look, we've seen some of the tech there, but just how big is this issue for communities up and down the country?
Well, it's an absolutely huge issue for communities right across the country. We're here at the site in Wigan. This, of course, is one that the government has announced that it is going to pay to clean up. Essentially, the British taxpayer is going to have to foot the bill. Let me just show it you, because there are some 30,000 tonnes of waste at this site in Wigan that is only, as the crow flies, 20 metres from people's back gardens. It's backed onto a school playing field, and last year there was a major incident declared here. There was a fire, the school had to close. Many of the residents have been struggling with rat infestations. That's how significant it is for the locals. We've heard from some of them this morning who've been giving us their reaction to the fact that this is finally going to be dealt with. Misha, who gave her first interview to Sky News, said that she's over the moon about it. We were here last month talking about the north-south divide, because, of course, the government has already announced some £9 million or so to clean up Kidlington down in Oxfordshire, Hoadswood in Kent, and there was this sort of feeling amongst the residents here and the local MP that nothing was being done in the north. Clearly, the government have responded to that, but let's not make any bones about it. It is the British taxpayer who is fitting the bill. It's not just that announcement from DEFRA today. The Environment Agency, as I said in my report, have also outlined this 10-point plan, essentially. The top lines of that is, look, let's get in quicker. Let's identify these sites before they become this big. I can tell you that message is hugely frustrating from residents here, from residents down in Epping, elsewhere, who said, we reported to the Environment Agency for months and months and months that tipping was going on here. There's a huge site down in Gloucester, a place called Over Farm, and Freedom of Information requests showed that the EA was approached more than 90 times, yet still no closure order there. So, you heard in my report, I was pressing that director from the Environment Agency as to what his message is to the members of the public who say, no, we've already been your eyes and ears. This is nothing new. Not really any answer there. He admitted there are challenges, but wouldn't admit that there have been any failures from the Environment Agency. There are lots of people who would disagree about that. Overall, good news that these sites are being cleared up, but there are many more. The bigger challenge, of course, is how they prevent them going forward. How can they stop them appearing in the first place? I think one interesting point to bring you is I had a message from a senior waste executive in the last 24 hours who said that the criminals, and these are organised criminal networks behind these very large sites, this isn't just small, low-level fly tipping. He said that the waste crime boys think this is hilarious. It's the easiest fraud opportunity ever. This 10-point plan may look impressive, and the money to clear it is, of course, welcome, but they still have a big fight on their hands.
Interesting stuff. Dan, for now in Wigan, thank you for that. More from you and team throughout the day. And later on this morning, I'm going to be speaking to Emma Reynolds, who's Secretary of State for Environment, Food and Rural Affairs, and putting to her some of the questions that Dan has there as to whether this is going to be enough for communities up and down the country blighted by these illegal dumps.
Yeah, I mean, and really blighted. I mean, these are huge.
That had been there for
these dumps.
ages. You can see from the state of that waste, that pile of waste had been there for a long, long time, and nothing had been done.
Yeah, so-called super sites. There are 3. Wigan, the one where we saw Dan at, and Sheffield and Lancashire together, 48,000 tonnes of waste.
It's crazy.
I mean, hard to get your head around.
It really is.
Let's turn to politics now. Former Deputy Prime Minister Angela Rayner, who is apparently on manoeuvres. She gave a speech this week warning Labour was running out of time and calling government proposals to make it harder for migrants already in the UK to settle permanently un-British.
Yeah, her comments have upset those loyal to the Prime Minister, as you'd imagine. Here's the former Deputy Party Leader, Baroness Harriet Harman, on this week's episode of the Electoral Dysfunction podcast.
Either it's trying to draw attention to herself as a future Labour candidate for Prime Minister, which I think she shouldn't be doing. She should be supporting the Labour Prime Minister that we've actually got, especially when times are very difficult and ahead of the elections where Labour is under a lot of pressure. Or it happened by accident, but either are extremely bad. There are a lot of people who, seeing this, will be reminding themselves that they don't want Angela Rayner to be leader of the Labour Party and Prime Minister, and it will redouble their efforts not to have a leadership election.
Go to Westminster now and bring in our political correspondent, Lucy McDade. Morning to you, Lucy. I mean, that's a powerful intervention there from Baroness Harman, isn't it? Sort of, it lays bare the issues within the Labour Party now that Angela Rayner has made it quite clear that she doesn't agree with some of the things that the top team are doing.
Yeah, absolutely. Morning, Kamali. This is Angela Rayner's first major intervention, criticism of the government, really, since she lost her role in Cabinet in September. And it was given, it was a speech on Tuesday night in a pub in Westminster to a group of Labour activists, and it was called the Mainstream Group. They are centre-left. They supported Andy Burnham, the Mayor of Greater Manchester, his intention to run in the Gorton and Denton by-election. Obviously, that didn't end up happening. But some really punchy words from Angela Rayner, as I say, her most significant intervention yet. The very survival of the Labour Party is at stake, she said, that people are getting the impression that the government represents the establishment, not working people. She did criticise some areas of policy, particularly around reforms to the immigration system. Shabana Mahmood, the Home Secretary, is looking at, among a number of things, to make it harder to gain indefinite leave to remain here, moving the goalpost from 5 years to 10 years. Angela Rayner said that that was un-British and that we should be fairer to people who have come here since 2021, who have been here for a number of years and were thinking that they would get their status after 5 years. Harriet Harman, quite interestingly, said that Angela Rayner was making a negative intervention in doing this. She made the very valid point, actually, that for many voters, where the cost of living is the main concern, immigration is second. So Harriet Harman, Baroness Harman, said to just wave it away as an issue and say it's un-British to exercise extra controls. What is she suggesting instead? And then she went on to say it's just a negative intervention. Of course, for a lot of people, this has been seen as Angela Rayner on manoeuvres, wanting to start a leadership contest. We've seen plenty of speculation. Actually, some of that has died down since we've seen the conflict in Iran. Many Labour MPs very supportive of the way Keir Starmer has been handling that. The biggest obstacle to Angela Rayner, though, has been, of course, her tax affairs. She had to resign in September when it was found that she underpaid stamp duty by about £40,000 on her second home on the coast. It is understood that that is close to being resumed. HMRC's investigation is almost over. May, the local elections, is being seen as a moment of peril for the Prime Minister. It seems that now is the time Angela Rayner thinks she should be stepping forward.
All right, Lucy, for now, thank you so much for that. Well, let's, with all of that in mind and, of course, the war in the Middle East as well as that illegal dumping that we saw from Dan Whitehead a little while ago. Let's get the thoughts now of the government. I'm pleased to say we can speak to the Environment Secretary, Emma Reynolds, joining us now live. Emma Reynolds, morning to you. Thank you so much for being with us. Sorry we can't be in person. We've come to the other studio today, but we welcome you and thank you for coming in. So, look, let's pick up on what we heard from Baroness Harman there, describing what Angela Rayner said as a negative intervention. Do you agree it was a negative intervention?
Well, look, I think that Labour MPs have views on all sorts of issues. What I will say is that I do agree with Harriet Harman that the number one issue that we hear from the public is the cost of living, concerns about the cost of living, particularly, obviously, at the moment. With regard to immigration, I think the public want to see a fair and managed immigration system, which is what the Home Secretary is setting out. She set out already some reforms, but on the precise issue of people who have been here since 2021 and want to claim indefinite leave to remain. We are consulting on whether we increase the time period, and we haven't yet responded to that consultation. But what I would say is we've got to have a balanced and fair approach to immigration. There are people who come here legally and contribute, but obviously there is illegal immigration as well. So the government is determined to have a fair and managed immigration system.
So, in some ways, you kind of support what Angela Rayner is saying, that it might well be un-British to make this change.
No,
you're going through the consultation.
I didn't say that.
Well,
I said that the government...
Right, and you're going to consider...
Well, that was always the case. That was always the case. Some months ago, we consulted on whether the time period should, for these people who are here from 2021, should double from 5 years to 10 years. The Home Secretary has not yet responded to that consultation. I didn't say that I agreed with Angela, but I did say that we are taking a very thoughtful and balanced approach to what is a difficult issue. But I do think the British public, given the levels of immigration that we've seen in recent years, although net migration is down markedly, I think that's worth saying, but I do think the British public want to see a fair and managed system of immigration in this country.
OK, let's move on to the report we had from Dan Whitehead earlier about illegal waste dumps. Is it right that these illegal sites have increased under the Labour government?
Well, they've been increasing for some time, including under the previous Conservative government. This is a level of waste crime that is of great concern to the British public, particularly those communities who live right next door to waste sites like the one in Wigan that you've rightly been covering. We're announcing today a major crackdown on waste criminals, and this ranges from fly tips to the bigger waste dumps that in Wigan and other parts of the country, like Kidlington in Oxfordshire. We're giving the Environment Agency police-style powers to search premises, to seize assets and to make arrests, and we're doubling their enforcement budget, and we're toughening up the penalties for these criminals too.
Is it right that you've been issuing more fixed penalty notices for these sites, but actually the court fines have actually dropped? Maybe the money needs to go there to make sure that it's followed through in the prosecution.
Well, it's for the courts to make those decisions, of course, but since the election we have seen 122 prosecutions, 10 custodial sentences, and we are ensuring that at the fly tipping end of this range, that people will be losing points on their licence and also be forced to join clean-up squads. But we do, on the most serious end of this, need to make sure that we have the best use of technology like drones, and that the Environment Agency has those police-style powers that I talked about, because we've got to ensure that we can track these criminals down and recover the costs of clean-up, because it must be the polluter who pays. As you've said earlier, that we are going to clear 3 of the most egregious and worst sites in the country that are causing damage to the environment, but also blighting nearby local communities. That's the right thing to do, but we do want to recover those costs from the criminals who put that illegal waste there in the first place.
Let's take you to the situation in the Middle East now, and a couple of points to put to you, Secretary of State. The UN Secretary-General has said that war crimes may have been committed. He believes there are reasonable grounds to believe that both sides have committed war crimes in the bombing of infrastructure, namely the gas fields. Does the UK government agree with that assessment?
Well, as you know, the UK government's position on the criminality of this type is that that is an issue for the international courts. But what I will say is that the Prime Minister has provided calm, level-headed leadership on this issue. We will not get dragged into this war. We haven't been dragged into this war. The Leader of the Opposition, and indeed the Leader of Reform, would have liked us to have got dragged into this war. And at home, we are helping people deal with the consequences. The Prime Minister earlier this week announced a £53 million package to help people, those people in rural areas who are dependent on heating oil. So we will do all that we can to help people back home, but our priority internationally is to de-escalate this conflict, and working with allies around the world to do that. Yeah,
absolutely. And Secretary of State, I should just bring you this line of breaking news from a telephone call that's been held between the Iranian foreign minister and the UK foreign minister. We talk about not being dragged in. The Iranians are now saying that providing military bases for the United States by Britain will be considered an act of aggression. So just by means of us being allies with the US, the Iranians are now seeing us as part of this. We're being dragged into this anyway, aren't we?
Well, I don't know, as you say, that is breaking news. But what I will say is that the government is absolutely right to protect and defend the 300,000 British nationals who are currently living in the Middle East. But we are also right not to be an active participant in, for example, we were called on to provide bases for offensive attacks in Iran, and the Prime Minister refused to allow UK bases to be allowed on that basis. We haven't been dragged into this war, and we do want to see a de-escalation of this conflict, which is terrible for the people, obviously, in the Middle East and the people who are directly impacted, but it's also very concerning for people back home with regard to the cost of their energy.
Absolutely. Secretary of State, look, I understand that, many people listening will understand that, but the Iranians perhaps don't. The fact that the US is allowed to use our bases, they say, is an act of aggression. Should it be reconsidered how much help we allow the US to have, how much we allow them to use our bases?
Well, we have 300,000 UK nationals in the Middle East, and the government is determined to do all that we can to help protect them. So it is right.
Even letting the US use our bases, because we're talking at slightly different points here. I think you're talking about UK bases. I'm talking about the bases that the US use, like RAF Fairford, and also, of course,
but as I said, they're only being used to allow for defensive purposes.
That's your distinction, it's not the distinction the Iranians are making.
Well, with respect, I'm not on your programme to negotiate with the Iranian regime. What I am stating is the government's position, which is our UK bases are only being used by us or our allies to defend our own people in the region.
OK. Perhaps something that will be considered later on. I just want to move you on to one other thing, another story that we're looking at today. Student loans. Plan 2 student loans. You'll know that there has been a lot of upset within the student community about these loans and about the fact that the interest keeps on going up and people aren't able to pay them off. Are the government looking at whether a change can be made in Plan 2 loans?
Well, the Prime Minister has said that he will look overall at the student loan system. This is obviously one that we inherited from the last government. I remember being in Parliament in 2010 and voting against the trebling of tuition fees back then. I understand the concerns of people who have these student loans, particularly the Plan 2 type that you talk about. But obviously the government also has to balance its fiscal responsibilities for general taxpayers as well. But as I said, the Prime Minister has said he's going to have a look at this issue.
OK, Secretary, I appreciate your indulgence. And just one last question for you, if you don't mind. It's on facial recognition technology and the use of live facial recognition cameras. Essex Police have said that they've paused their use of that because of concerns about racial bias within the technology. You'll know that there are concerns that were put forward by the National Physical Laboratory that the Home Office were aware of back in December of last year about the racial bias within these systems. People have been arrested wrongly for crimes they didn't commit. Are the government minded to look again at the use of facial recognition technology and the bias within the system?
Well, obviously, we don't want to see any racial bias in any of these systems, so I think that is something that the Home Secretary will take very seriously indeed. This isn't, I am the government representative this morning, but this isn't my responsibility or policy area, but all I would say is that the Home Office will look at the case that you suggest in Essex very seriously. We don't want to see racial bias in our policing, and we'll listen very carefully to what Essex Police has to say about this technology.
Secretary of State, I really appreciate you today. We went through a lot of topics there, so thanks so much for answering all the questions where you could. Thank you very much, Emma Reynolds. Right, we got around a lot of things, didn't we?
Yeah, a lot of subjects, including breaking news as well.
Yeah. Took a bit more of the time than I would normally do with a government minister, but I thought interesting to hear some of the answers that she wouldn't be negotiating with the Iranian regime live on television. But as I put to her, the distinction that we are making about defensive and offensive use of the bases, the Iranians are not. So the concern will be that those bases will become targeted.
They may not see it that way.
And our people will be targeted, yeah.
Do stay with us. We've got lots coming up for you, including all the latest on the meningitis outbreak, as the family of a teenager who died demand urgent action so more students can get the vaccine. Now, several former world leaders are calling on countries across the world to speak up and criticise the US and Israel for attacking Iran.
Yeah, the Elders, a group that was founded by Nelson Mandela in 2007, want leaders to stand up to Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu and resist pressure to get involved with what's going on in the Middle East. I'm pleased to say we are now joined by the former President of Ireland and former UN High Commissioner for Human Rights, Mary Robinson. Mary Robinson, it's always a pleasure to speak with you. Thank you so much for making the time to speak to us today. And in the time that we were going to speak to you, the UN have also said that war crimes may have been committed by both sides in this war. How difficult is it going to be to get people to stand up to Benjamin Netanyahu and Donald Trump and follow the advice set out by your group?
It's really very important that other countries do speak up, because we need to support the international rule of law. It's one of the great gains of humanity, and we need to preserve it. Therefore, we don't want to have double standards. When Russia invaded, attacked Ukraine, there was a lot of outspoken criticism, rightly, for that aggression. But we see aggression now by the United States and Israel on Iran, which is not justified under the Charter, which is illegal, and very few countries have spoken explicitly about it. They're trying to avoid, and I think this is right, being drawn into trying to open up the Strait of Hormuz that's a problem for those who started this war. But the double standards are very clear to the world. And I have to say, you know, the foreign minister of Oman has spoken very clearly because he knows that there was a new and substantive proposal on the table by the Iranians during the negotiations. And instead of continuing with that, all of a sudden there is this military attack, which is unjustified under international law. And governments must be prepared to speak out about that.
Energy prices, as you know, have jumped after the attacks on oil and gas fields, as well as the effective closure of the Strait of Hormuz. You say that's a problem for those who started the war, but you'll acknowledge it has huge consequences for the global economies. So what should the UK and other countries do? Should they step in to defend it? You don't think so?
Well, yes, those oil and gas prices affect the poorest countries most. So the elders are very concerned about it. It's one of the consequences of this war. So the sooner this war is brought to an end, the better. There's, a real problem there. But the problem is caused by an illegal war rather than continuing what, were substantive negotiations that were taking place. And, the truth is, the rule of law is a human construct. It's a wonderful gift that earlier generations gave to us that we must conserve by being very clear in not being in breach of rule of law and in speaking out when there is an aggressive, illegal attack, as is the case here. Of course, we do not support the regime in Iran, and I acknowledge that the UN has said both sides may be guilty of war crimes, and the repressive regime has been terrible in Iran, but that does not justify an aggressive attack contrary to the UN Charter.
Mary Robinson, you mentioned the double standard, the hypocrisy that the Middle East and Global South will see in the way that this war has been responded to versus the Ukraine war. And I actually put something similar to Lord Mark Malloch-Brown yesterday. Basically, the trust in institutions like the UN has been completely eroded, and it's perhaps at this point almost impossible to get back. What do you think, whether that trust can be restored once people see quite clearly, as you point out, that there is a double standard?
Well, we saw it in a recent resolution of the Security Council, condemning what Iran was doing, but not condemning the aggressive war by Israel and the United States. That really saddened me. The elders were very supportive of the UN. It always needs reform. It's not a perfect institution, but it is a very important body in the world. And we need to see proper standards. And that was a sad day for the Security Council when it passed that imbalanced resolution, to say the least of it. And this is all part of an erosion that's going on that does concern us very much. We don't like having to issue statements, but as elders, we really feel very strongly somebody has to speak out and speak up. And we welcome those who do, like, as I mentioned, the Foreign Minister of Oman, who's in a very good position to know the truth.
Benjamin Netanyahu last night said that the war will end a lot faster than many people think. Donald Trump has also said that it'll end soon. What's your view? When do you think this will end, and how do you think it'll end?
I hope it will end very soon. It's an aggressive, illegal war. It should end. It should end by the perpetrators of it stopping. The war is causing such deaths in Iran itself, in Lebanon. The utter misery, and then, as you say now, the oil and gas prices, which affect the poorest, and the possibilities of food price increases, again, affecting the poorest. So the impacts of the war beyond the region are also very serious, but within the region, this is a very dangerous war because it's stirring up, possibilities of a war that could go on for a long time. So I'm pleased in that sense that both the United States and Israel recognize it should be brought to an end. They're the ones that can do it.
Okay, Mary Robinson, former President of Ireland, always good to get your expertise on these matters. Thank you very much for joining us, Ms. Robinson. Thank you.
Thanks so much. Now, the father of a schoolgirl who died following a meningitis outbreak in Kent says young people deserve better protection.
Now, health officials are expected to face questions after more than 100 students were turned away yesterday while trying to get vaccinated against the disease. Well, our correspondent Molly Malone is here for a bit more on this. Molly, morning to you. So why don't we first of all pick up on the statement from the father of Juliet calling for there to be more done to help young people get vaccinated?
Yeah, we've very much been reminded of the human cost of this disease this morning. Here are some powerful words from Juliet Kenny's father. She was a sixth form student in Kent, just 18 years old when she died last weekend. Her father says within 12 hours of showing symptoms of meningitis and going to hospital, she'd been vomiting and had discoloration on her cheeks. Michael Kenny said in a statement that she'd been fit, healthy and strong before her death, that he's calling for more protection for young adults, young teenagers. I'm going to read you some of his words. He said, Juliet is a force in this world. With her beautifully positive energy, she spread fun, love and happiness to those around her, and she continues to do so now. The devastation of her loss to us, her family and friends, is immeasurable. The work to protect young people has started. It needs to be more. Juliet's impact on this world must be lasting change. Now is the time to ensure families are safe from the impact of meningitis B. So clear calls there for better protection for young people. We know that babies get this vaccine for this particular strain, meningitis B, and they have done since 2015. But that means that most of the UK's current sort of older teenagers and university students haven't been vaccinated unless they get the jab privately, which can be expensive. The outbreak that we've seen over the last week in Kent has been described by authorities as unprecedented, and that's largely because the rate of which it's spread, and actually scientists are still trying to sort of grapple with that and explain why that's happened, because we haven't seen it spread to that extent in previous outbreaks over the years. We know that 2 people have lost their life, including Juliet Kenny and a 21-year-old student in Kent as well, and there have been 27 confirmed or suspected cases. The reason why it's confirmed or suspected is you have 15 that are confirmed, and then you have a further 12 that are being suspected but investigated. And in terms of the vaccine, well, they've been extending that and widening out provision. And now that includes anyone who attended Club Chemistry, which is the centre of this outbreak, between March the 5th and March the 15th, and sixth form students at 4 schools, and also staff and students at the University of Kent. So far, overnight, we had confirmation that around 2,300 jabs have now been given, but reports suggesting that 100 people were turned away while they were queuing to try and get the vaccine, and that was because staff simply couldn't see the amount of people that they wanted to in the time they had allocated. So they've now opened more vaccination centres throughout today and in coming days, and clearly people want to get vaccinated because there is considerable concern.
Yeah, of course, understandably, and they want to get vaccinated before they head home for Easter holidays as well, don't they? Yeah, Molly, thanks very much indeed. Thank you.
All right, let's talk about student loans now, a topic that we've covered quite extensively on this show.
Well, yes, because so many people are unhappy with the current system, aren't they? And so much so that MPs have launched an inquiry into just how fair it is.
Yeah, I was talking to the Minister a little bit about this a short time ago. Around 5 million people are affected by what are known as Plan 2 loans, which for various reasons are quite controversial.
Yeah, a lot of people have them. Let's get some reaction this morning. Here are Chloe Field, who graduated from Liverpool University 6 years ago, and Ollie Ashton, who's currently a student at the University of Birmingham. So very good morning to both of you. Thanks so much for talking to us today. Chloe, I'll start with you. I think you graduated, as we say, 6 years ago. So tell us your experience with your loan, and do you think it's fair?
Yeah, well, my loan is currently at £50,000. I graduated in 2020, but that's increased by 1,600 with interest. But I've only been able to pay in £500. So the way my debt is increasing is kind of going ahead of how much I'm actually able to put into it. I don't think the loan system in general is very fair. I think it often puts the burden on graduates who have come from lower income families, as they have to take out more loans. I also think it puts a burden on graduates who are often upskilling and are the future workers of this country, and in the public infrastructure. So we shouldn't be disincentivising young people and people in general from being able to access higher education. We should instead be making it easy and accessible and incentivising and not leaving graduates with so much debt.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for that, Chloe. Ollie, I'm going to bring you in now at this point. You're studying at the University of Birmingham. I think you want to go on to be a teacher. I mean, some of what Chloe said, I wondered how much that resonates with you and whether or not, had you had your time again, you would have reconsidered some of the efforts to go to university with the potential, the huge amount of debt you might take on.
Yeah, I mean, full transparency, I'm now on £65,000 worth of debt, and I'm not finished my degree. Would I have considered other alternatives? Maybe. I currently study environmental science, and I do like my course, but is it worth £65,000 to try and study it? I don't know. I feel like students have always been at the backbone of government politics, from trebling the student fees to where we are now, where I feel like students are in free fall of where the contracts that we all signed can be changed at any moment by the government.
Sorry, let's just be clear what you're saying, Ollie. You are, what are you, second year?
I'm in my third and final year.
Third year, OK, final year. But you've amassed, at this point, 65 grand in student debt already. I mean, that's just an extraordinary amount of money for anyone to have at any point in their lives, and you haven't even got into the world of work yet. Oh, sorry, Ollie.
I can't hear you, Ollie. I don't know if
there might be a mute button pressed by accident
or
or
something you've done, but there's a problem with...
No, yeah, I mean, I do...
There we go.
We got you back. Go ahead.
Can you hear me now? Lovely.
Yes.
Lovely, yeah. I do currently have a job. I work at the student union, and I work over the summer most years as well, trying to actually make sure, even though I get a maintenance grant from the government, that I can still actually afford to live at university as well. I mean, I go to Birmingham, and I thought it'd be cheaper from where I live down south, but it's still quite expensive just to get through.
Yeah, it's really tough, isn't it? Chloe, do you still agree that student loans are the best way of funding university education? The fact that the people who will benefit from the education are the ones that get to pay, rather than it being paid for in general taxation? Do you still think it's the fairest method theoretically? It's just the details that you don't like, or what's your view?
I don't think it's the fairest, but I also don't think it's the most it's not working, essentially, for financing universities. Universities, we've seen a number of universities have to close down, make a load of staff redundant, cancel a load of students' courses over the last just couple of years because they financially can't function. And a lot of other universities that are still kind of up and running are often complaining about how their finances aren't sustainable. So I don't think it's fair, like I said before, about the weight on working class students and working class graduates. But I also just don't think it's working, and we're coming to crisis point. I think we maybe are at crisis point of the funding of universities, and I think serious radical changes need to be made to be able to protect higher education and also protect the skilling up of the future workforce in Britain.
Chloe, I'll ask you this first, but then ask Ollie as well. I don't know if you heard my conversation with the Secretary of State when I asked her about this and whether or not the government were minded to do anything. Basically said, not at this point, but if the financial situation changes, and I think we can all agree that the financial situation doesn't seem to be changing. I wonder what you think of that, Chloe, in terms of what the government could do, will do to support you.
Yeah, I think I understand where the minister might be coming from about the financial situations, but this is a long-term investment. Investing in higher education will be a long-term investment which makes the economy better in Britain. It's we're having a crisis with, for example, the NHS, in public services, so in kind of like social work, care work. They're all jobs that can require, and often, especially in healthcare, will require higher education training or studying or degrees. And by investing in higher education courses and degrees, then we are able to skill up the future workforce. And then we have people to be able to do the jobs to help prop up the NHS and make it better and fill in those backlogs. So it is an investment into the future long term. It just requires money to be put into it to get those results.
Yeah, and Ollie, what do you think of what the government is sort of saying at this point?
I mean, it's free in Scotland, university education, so I can't see why it's not plausible for this government, especially because I would call what the current system a kind of regressive taxation on lower income students, especially people from lower economic backgrounds. Because the way it works is if you come from a household with lower income, you get more maintenance grant. But that means by the end, maintenance loan. So that means by the end of your degree, students who come from poorer backgrounds have more debt. So I have £65,000 worth of debt, but I know people that are graduating the same year as me will be graduating with around £48,000 to £52,000 worth of debt. And I'm sure that this government wants to be a progressive government and not have this type of regressive taxation.
Well, Ollie Ashton, Chloe Field, we really appreciate your time this morning. Thanks so much for sharing your experiences and good luck with it all. Appreciate it. And I hope you're still enjoying yourself there in Birmingham at University, Ollie.
Thanks
so
both.
much.
Thank you.
It's an extraordinary amount of money, but...
Yeah, it is a lot of money. And Jackie,
I try not to think of it. It really scares me.
What, for your kids?
Yeah.
Yeah, our kids have all got
Just
student loans.
imagine the combined debt of 3.
My goodness,
Horrendous.
don't do the numbers, yep.
Don't do it.
Sport this morning.
Yes,
good morning. Hello,
good
by the
morning.
way.
So,
Morning, Jackie.
so after we come off air, like shortly after come off air, Thomas Tuchel's going to name his England squad for the upcoming friendlies. The press conference is around 11 o'clock, so I think the announcement will come just before that. And you think, well, friendly, does it really matter? Oh, yeah, it really matters.
Definitely
because you know
does.
what? Time is really running out before the World Cup. They've got these 2 friendlies, Uruguay and Japan, before the end of the month. Then there's 2 more friendlies, and then you're into World Cup matches. And a lot of players are sort of off form or they're injured. And you've got your usual suspects, you know, Harry Kane, Declan Rice, Saka, Pickford. You know, those names will be obviously first on the sheet. But there are so many others which are like, oh, you know, Jude Bellingham's been injured. Will he bring him back? Kobe Mainoo, you know, back in favour at Man United. Harry Maguire playing well at Man United, but was out for a long... I mean, there's just so many questions. He's got, like, a nightmare of a job to do. But
It's a tough job, but someone's got to do it.
Yeah, someone's got to do it.
As long as he picks Elliot Anderson, we'll be happy.
But it doesn't give them long to gel together as a team, does it?
No, but he hasn't... I mean, that's the perennial thing,
Always
isn't it?
happens.
With an England manager, you just don't have very long and you're at the mercy of form and injuries and all the rest of it. Nottingham Forest... I don't know if you were watching last night. But,
I went to bed very early.
They have such a massive match at the weekend on Sunday against Spurs. Spurs and Forest flirting with relegation, dangerously flirting with relegation, and they're playing each other just above each other in the table. And it's one of those matches where you've got to win it. They've both got to win it, and of course they can't both got to win it. So anyway, last night Forest playing in Europe, and there were 9 changes made for that match. But they had a really good night. And I would think if you're a Forest fan and a player, what a boost to play in Europe, even with a very changed team, to get a result like they did is a huge boost.
Winning is great for the team going into a massive game like that on Sunday.
Yeah.
Not too much, and the distraction perhaps from the peril of the league. I don't know, but you don't.
But also 9 changes made, so you know
fresh legs
coming in. A quick taste of the action from last night. So 1-0 down from the first leg against Midtjylland of Denmark. Ryan Yates with a great strike to make it 2-0 on the night for Forest after Nicolas Dominguez opened the scoring. But Midtjylland got a goal back to take the match to extra time and penalties, which is not ideal. Forest scored their first 3 penalties, leaving Midtjylland having to score this to stay in the shootout. Their players slipped over, and you can see what happened. And it means that Forest are through to play Porto. Now, Aston Villa were 2-0 winners against Lille, 3-0 over the 2 legs. John McGinn with the opening goal at Villa Park after really quick thinking from Emi Martinez. Unai Emery has won this competition 4 times. Will this be his year again? And Crystal Palace in the other league, the Europa Conference League, into the quarterfinals there after beating Larnaca 2-1 on the night after extra time. Ismail Assar with both goals. He was great last night. Larnaca, though, ending that match with 9 men. Now, we haven't talked about Luke Littler for a long time. And you're probably thinking, oh, well, he won last night. Why would we be talking about him? Is that news? It is, actually, because they were in Dublin. It was night 7 of the Premier League darts, and he beats Gerwyn Price. And you're thinking, I can see your face, Kamali.
Go on.
Come back.
Yes. It was 5-0 down.
You know.
It was 5-0 down, and he said, his words, I was gone.
Yeah.
And he came back. I think Gerwyn Price just needed a double to seal out the match, and he didn't get it. And then Luke Littler swoops in.
That's incredible.
It was incredible. I was gone. I don't know how I did that. That's why he's special.
It's a champion.
He's just got that thing where, when the going gets tough, I'm going to wheel out my really good dart.
Did the other guy choke at all?
Well, I suppose it was a mistake. Wow. I've got to admit, I didn't see it. I saw a bit of it when he won his semi-final, but I didn't see the final. It's quite late. But anyway, 5-0 down wins. Amazing. It would have been an amazing night in Dublin. And also, quite late last night, if you're a tennis fan, you might be watching this, but you probably definitely wouldn't have been watching it unless you're a real tennis buff. So Fran Jones, British tennis player, was playing Venus Williams in Miami and won. Now, it was quite a tough match, but she won. But what was really sweet about this was, I don't know if you just saw that, she sort of bowed to her a little bit before going to the net and then going, is it OK if I hug you? Because Venus Williams and Serena are the reasons that she plays tennis. She had a poster of them on her wall when she was little. She would say goodnight to them every night before she went to bed. And Fran Jones was told that she could never play tennis because those in tennis know this very well, but Fran Jones only has 3 fingers on each hand and 7 toes over 2 feet. She's got thumbs as well. So it's not, her journey has not been easy in tennis, but you know, she's got grit and she's got perseverance. And to have that moment, to play Venus Williams, and she said, I thought I'd kind of missed it because Venus is 45. And yet,
she was still playing.
And yet she had her moment in Miami last night. I just thought it was kind of...
Congratulations to Fran.
It was kind of sweet. I know I didn't show any of her shot making. It was pretty good.
Quite a moment to meet your hero.
And then beat your idol as well.
And then beat them, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think they've actually practiced together a little bit as well. So I think, you know, sort of dream come true stuff.
Yeah, fantastic stuff. That's so good.
Fran is through. Well done, Fran.
Congratulations. And that's all in preparation for, what's the first major tournament there? Whereabouts are you? The US Open that's coming up. Is that
No. We've done Australia. Then it's the French on clay. We're in the hard court. Don't confuse the issue.
I confused myself. Sorry about that. Hope I didn't confuse you. We'll be back.
We'll get things all straightened out in the next hour, though. And we've got all the top stories coming your way.
Indeed.
What's the best thing about being a Sky News presenter?
We've done the work and the reading, so you don't have to.
Being a Sky News presenter.
Hello and welcome. Westminster, the heart of British politics.
I'm so sorry about what happened to you.
So what on earth is going on?
It's not true.
Can I tell you what I think? It's really unusual. Mornings with Roger and Frost.
Let's crack on. Let's get started.
Hello and a very good morning. It's 8 o'clock. This is Mornings with Jones and Melbourne. I'm Anna.
And I'm Kamali. Thanks for starting your day with us. Here's how we're looking.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says Israel will hold off attacks on Iranian gas fields after a request from Donald Trump, and says the war will end a lot faster than people think.
Loud bangs heard in Dubai overnight after a warning of potential missile threats. We're going to be live in the UAE.
The father of a schoolgirl who died following a meningitis outbreak in Kent says the loss is immeasurable and calls for better protection for young people.
Also ahead, the scramble to book flights as the war sends airfares soaring. We are going to speak to the travel expert, Simon Calder.
Plus, we joined the new drone squad launched as part of the government's new crackdown on waste criminals.
Hello, good morning and thank you for being with us. Israel has attacked Iran again after Benjamin Netanyahu said at the request of Donald Trump he'd hold off on further strikes on the Iranian South Pars gas field. He also said the war's going to end a lot faster than people think.
Well, Iran has responded, hitting Bahrain, Kuwait and the United Arab Emirates, and this morning insisted that Tehran is still building missiles. Meanwhile, in the past hour, we've heard Iran's foreign minister has told the UK that providing military bases for the US will be considered as participation in aggression. Well, more on all the latest developments in just a moment. But first, our international affairs editor, Dominic Waghorn, has been hearing from an Iranian foreign ministry spokesperson in Tehran.
You cannot expect a country that is under military aggression to exercise restraint. You have to direct your call to those aggressors. They started this aggression. They have to stop.
It sounds, though, to people listening, therefore, that Iran is prepared to escalate at whatever the cost. And we've heard from your colleagues saying this is not the time for diplomacy. This is the time to defend Iran. But I think people listening are desperate to hear there's some kind of progress. Is there any kind of olive branch you can offer to your enemies to say, there is something you can talk about, a way out of this crisis before it engulfs the whole region and possibly further beyond?
Do you think it would be really realistic to offer olive branch to those who want to behead you? They are killing our elites. They are targeting our leaders. So we are facing a combination of acts of terrorism and acts of aggression and terrorism. And this is unprecedented. So this killing spree has to stop. They have killed so many people across Iran. So you cannot expect the country that is defending itself against this barbaric act of aggression to show olive branch to those who knows no boundary in targeting your country.
Let's go to Dubai now, bringing our correspondent Sally Lockwood. So, Sally, look, we've heard there from the Iranians, and this is going to go on. The Israelis saying it could end sooner than we think. What's the sense from where you are as there have been more missile intercepts overnight?
Yeah, good morning to you both, Kamali. Very little change here. We've got quite used to the morning incoming missile attacks, which happened around 7 a.m. this morning here. We got an emergency alert on our phones, and then it was followed by some very loud blasts, which sounded quite closer than normal, some of them. We've since heard that the missiles and drones that were fired at the UAE this morning have been successfully intercepted without any damage or injuries that we're aware of. But this came around the same time as morning prayer, and it's especially significant today because it's Eid al-Fitr, which marks the end of the holy month of Ramadan, and morning prayer is especially beautiful and quite long for Eid, and we were listening to that this morning at the same time as we heard the loud blasts of air defence in the sky, which really highlighted what people have been going through during this holy month of Ramadan, which is such a sacred time in the Muslim calendar. But it wasn't just the UAE that was attacked this morning. Bahrain, Kuwait and Saudi have all reported incoming missile and drone attacks, and Kuwait is actually reporting a drone strike on one of its 3 major oil refineries there. Of course, we're now seeing that these attacks on Gulf energy infrastructure are continuing, and it is a real concern for Gulf nations. It shows a real escalation in this war. And on that, Donald Trump held a phone call with the UAE's president yesterday, no doubt discussing this very subject. And news came that an $8 billion package of arms and defences is being expedited to the UAE. They include air defences and anti-drone systems, we understand, according to Secretary of State Marco Rubio. And that does suggest that the UAE is having to make preparations to fight this war for potentially a very long time, no matter what Donald Trump or Benjamin Netanyahu may say about the timeline that they have in their heads. Certainly, I think for Gulf countries, they're preparing for this to last a significant amount of time. And the UN Human Rights Chief has said that targeting Gulf energy infrastructure does mark a new dangerous phase in this war. And when Donald Trump says, it's going to end sooner than you think, I think when you hear from the likes of Qatar, who say it's going to take years for their energy exports to recover from the attacks that they've seen so far, it's very clear that for Iran's neighbours, they're preparing for the consequences of this war to last well beyond whatever Donald Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu may be thinking about in terms of some sort of conclusion to the war as they know it.
Sally, that's so interesting. Thanks very much indeed. Really interesting, given the fact that we have had several statements from Donald Trump talking about the war ending soon, as well as this comment last night from Benjamin Netanyahu saying that the war will end a lot faster than people think. But there are all sorts of questions as well over what that means, because it appears that the two sides, Israel and the US, have different objectives, certainly different stated objectives. And that was actually confirmed by Tulsi Gabbard, wasn't it, who's the Director of National Intelligence, who was giving evidence to a congressional committee yesterday. And she actually said that the stated objectives are different. So that means at what stage does one side feel they've fulfilled their objectives? Will that coincide with the other? So big questions about what that actually means when they say it'll end soon.
Yeah, I mean, certainly for the US, they've had moving objectives. I mean, some will list as many as 7, perhaps 10 objectives that were set out by Donald Trump, going from regime change to complete surrender to just destroying the nuclear threat as well as the missile threat. Many analysts think that Donald Trump will at some point be able to declare victory because he's set so many different things that he can then point to as being having been achieved. The Israelis, will they be able to continue without the US support? It's very unlikely. But I think on the Iranian side, as Sally pointed out there, in Dubai, they're still under missile threat. There were 5 missiles fired towards Bahrain that they reported shooting down. I mean, they shot down 5. It's not entirely clear how many may have got through. The UAE intercepted multiple drones. As I said, Saudi Arabia had their air defences active too. The Iranians hit an oil refinery in the north of Israel near Haifa. So despite us being nearly 3 weeks into this war, despite us hearing that the US have hit 8,000 sites, the Israelis many sites, the Iranians, who say they're still manufacturing missiles, are clearly still able to fire back in the region, which tells you they haven't been stopped militarily at all by this point.
Indeed. Now then, let's turn our attention to a big issue here in this country. The government is saying that it's going to pay to clear up thousands of tonnes of illegally dumped waste in the north of England.
Yeah, fly tipping is a huge problem all across the country and one that we have been following pretty closely for months. Yes,
well, the Environment Agency is determined to get on top of things, and as well as clearing up the mess, they'll be using new drone squads to help spot illegal dump sites. Dan Whitehead has this report.
It is a site that has become all too familiar. Hundreds of thousands of tonnes of illegally dumped waste. Sky News has reported on the scourge of waste sites across the country for more than a year. Now a new government plan that it hopes will finally sort it.
It can be used very effectively for evidence gathering. The photographs we can take from the sky, it paints the picture of the significant level of impact that this has had on the countryside.
James is one of 33 new drone pilots recruited by the Environment Agency. Kit's being tested here at Hodes Wood in Kent, a 30,000-tonne illegal waste site that the EA has been clearing since last June. The tech is just one part of a series of new measures.
This 10-point plan includes buzzwords like fast intelligence handling. Essentially what it means is the EA wants to get in quicker and prevent situations like here at Hodes Wood. It's costing around £10 million to clear this up. They want to get to sites before they get too big. And that's been a really big frustration amongst members of the public who question why authorities don't act sooner.
Well, our own waste crime survey suggests that only 27% of waste crime is reported to the authorities, and we can't act on what we don't know about. So we are asking people to stand by us, report anything, even the slightest detail. It could be the piece of intelligence that helps us to act.
Why have some of the sites, like Epping, like Wigan, been able to take root before any action is taken?
This is a societal issue.
But the public for months and months have been calling, and there's no closure orders or bollards put in. So why is that? Is it resources? I mean, there's no blame, but you're stretched, I presume.
Well, we try and use the resources the resources we have to have the most impact in the best way possible, and that's why that early intelligence is important to us, so we can be able to target our approach.
The EA says it closed around 700 illegal waste dumps last year, which may well have grown into huge sites like this. But it still costs the UK economy around £1 billion annually, a cost to taxpayers and legitimate waste companies struggling to survive.
It's very frustrating to see them doing what they should be doing, dealing with permits, paying for subsistence fees, paying for consultants, paying for professional advice, and then down the road we see what's happening at Hodes Wood and Kidlington and Over and Wigan and Northwich, and apparently a blind eye is being turned to that while my clients are doing the right thing, so frustration doesn't begin to cover it.
News that the government will now pay to clear 48,000 tonnes of waste from 3 sites in the north of England is welcome. But organised criminal gangs continue to avoid millions in landfill tax. The EA wants the public to be its eyes and ears, while it uses the latest technology to try and stop them.
And Dan joins us now. Dan, the size of that waste pit is horrendous, isn't it? Tell us a little bit more.
Yeah, it's just one of many sites right across the country. The Environment Agency and DEFRA putting out this plan to try and tackle it and really get ahead of the reporting that we've been doing right across the country on the illegal waste sites. We're in Wigan, which is one of the dumps that is being cleared by the government, some 48,000 tonnes at 3 sites in the north of England. It follows our report in January on allegations of a north-south divide, really, because we've seen millions of pounds set aside for Kidlington in Oxfordshire, Hodes Wood in Kent. No money for big sites and illegal dumps here in the north. That clearly is one of the things that is being tackled by the government, as well as this 10-point plan from the Environment Agency. They want to see permits revoked, suspended, naming and shaming of companies. But when it comes to the site here in Wigan, let's have a chat with the MP for Makerfield, Josh Simons. Josh, you've long campaigned for action to be taken here. Let's just give us your first reaction to the fact that finally this 30,000 tonnes of rubbish behind you is going to be cleared.
Well, it's a massive win for our community, and I'm really, really pleased. Just behind me, this dump, on the other side of the huge waste pile is a primary school. The primary school playing fields where the kids play outside, they do their egg and spoon race in the summer. They've not been able to use that now for almost 18 months. And after we've done this, I'm going to go to the primary school, to their assembly, and tell them that the government stepped up. It's going to clean up this site and they will be able to use their playing field again. That will make those kids, their parents, the families and the whole community really happy.
It's the British taxpayer that's paying. The criminals aren't. That isn't good news, is it? That actually it's us who's having to clear this up and pay for it.
Well, the organised criminals who've done this site and who've done other sites across the country need to be banged up and put behind bars. A big part of the action plan today, it's not just about making sure that northern towns like the one I represent have the government's backing and get cleared up. It's also about making sure that the Environment Agency have the resources and the powers to do that. They've been underfunded and under-resourced for a long time, and they need the police powers that the government are giving them today to make sure that those organised criminals are banged up and put behind bars.
And that is a big point, isn't it? Because this 10-point plan really focuses on the fact that the Environment Agency wants the public to be the eyes and ears. They want early intervention so they can come here, put the blockades in before it gets too big and then it costs millions. But the locals on this street here in Bickershaw said that they've been highlighting it for months and months and months. It's the same in Gloucester, it's the same in Epping, it's the same in Hodewood, that they told the Environment Agency it was going on and nothing was done about it.
That's right. I've done town halls many times with those residents in Bickershaw, my constituents, and they've said the same thing to me. They've actually said the same thing straight to the Environment Agency, and the Environment Agency have been clear that they think there have been failures, not just in this case, but in others too, and that has got to change. The crucial thing is that it's no good doing an investigation as you sit by and watch massive lorries driving past Environment Agency investigators, letting these sites pile up, because that is a bad deal for taxpayers. It's no good investigating and then spending more to have to clean them up afterwards. Concrete blocks, early intervention and disrupting the crime has to happen earlier.
OK, Josh, thanks very much for speaking to us. Appreciate it. This is one of the sites that, you know, is going to be cleared, but it is an ever-evolving challenge. They've got a fight on their hands. We heard that just in the last 3 weeks, the Environment Agency has had to come and put more blockades on a scrap of land across, because we heard that waste was being moved here to another site. It is a constant fight, and I heard from an environment top executive in the last 24 hours who says that the waste crime boys think these plans are, quote, hilarious, and that it's the easiest fraud opportunity ever. So the Environment Agency, the government, you know, announcing this plan, hoping that this is the big measure that's going to tackle this. They may well clear the sites. The question is whether they can stop them reappearing elsewhere.
Yeah, and local residents will really hope they can. Dan, thanks very much indeed. I mean, horrendous people living near one of those sites.
Large that site is. It's obviously been there for ages. It's piled high, and it's, I guess, about time for those people that live locally that it is cleared away.
And such a hazard, you know, they catch fire. It's horrendous for people locally.
Anyway,
yeah.
All right. Now,
take a look at some of the fallout from the Iran war and the focus on global air travel, which remains severely disrupted as a result of the war, with key Middle East hubs such as Dubai, Doha and Abu Dhabi forced to close.
I'm very pleased to say we're joined in person, not on the road today, by Simon Calder, the independent travel correspondent. Simon, great to have you with us. Morning to you. We have spoken a few times since this war has broken out about the state of it. Last time I think we spoke, you may have been in Melbourne, Australia. You're back. We're pleased to see that. What is the disruption like right now?
OK, it's very, very bad. OK, if you are looking at those key hubs, first of all, Doha, the hub for Qatar Airways, the second biggest of the Gulf airlines, that is basically closed. They are trying to run some flights, but it's simply not a coherent operation. Etihad at Abu Dhabi is up to maybe a quarter of normal operations. I actually came through there on Monday. Bear in mind that all these locations are on the Foreign Office no-go list. And so while you're in transit, your travel insurance is ineligible. It doesn't apply because you are going against Foreign Office warnings. Having said that, it was all very smooth and efficient. It just looked absolutely empty. And then at Dubai, which is getting back to normal faster than anybody else, we're currently at about 50% of normal operations. Well, it's just been intermittent. So I've just been checking the overnight flight from Manchester, Emirates Flight 20 is apparently, and I'm just going on according to one of the flight tracking websites, has been diverted to Ras Al Khaimah, which is 45 miles northeast of Dubai. Not sure why, but it's just that level of disruption and uncertainty. I've been tracking that flight for a week. 5 times it's made it, but once it went all the way back to Manchester because of problems at Dubai, another attack from Iranian drones and missiles. And yeah, this morning it could well be that people are sort of rubbing their eyes and thinking, where am I? Clearly the airlines desperately want to get back to being able to offer a sensible service, but at the moment we're still a very long way from that.
And did you feel when you were landing, was it Doha that you...
Abu Dhabi.
Abu Dhabi. Did you think, oh, what if my onward flight is cancelled and I'm stuck here? I mean, is that a risk that people take if they go by one of these hubs?
It is. There is so much uncertainty. And let me take you back to 3 weeks ago, almost, when there were an awful lot of people who were in the position of having flown into Doha, to Dubai, to Abu Dhabi, and then suddenly the attack came in and they were stuck there. That was really, really difficult. It could happen again, but bluntly, my fare was just under £600 travelling back from Indonesia. all the other airlines who are profiting by offering a service, I'm not saying they're profiteering, they're just offering a service, not going via the Gulf, they were 3 times as much.
Wow.
So I thought, well, I'll save over £1,000 by taking this option.
Taking the risk, taking
exactly,
the chance, because you could go by, I guess, Istanbul or somewhere else. Now, in the time since we have spoken last, there's been fears about jet fuel. And I know that some airlines are sort of making quite scary contingency planning for what may go on. What's your sense of what we should be thinking about this?
OK, well, don't panic is the message I got from the aviation leaders in the UK and Ireland. Indeed, I was talking yesterday to the boss of EasyJet and Ryanair, and they both say, we're not worried about price because we're locked into a very good hedge. That means they've bought their fuel ahead, and so therefore they've kind of got an oil price surge holiday for the next few months, going well up to a year ahead, according to the boss of Ryanair. However, can you actually get the stuff? There are shortages in places like Vietnam, which is dependent on supplies from places like China. Also been issues apparently in Sri Lanka. Now, in Europe, it's easier. And the message was that as long as the war is over within weeks, 4, 5, 6 weeks, then there will not be a problem. Beyond that, we simply don't know. And of course, aviation absolutely dependent on, it's got a huge thirst for fuel. Having said that, I was talking to the boss of Lufthansa, who says, look, if we do start running out of jet fuel, that will be symptomatic of something which is far, far worse. We don't actually use that much oil. You will see petrol stations running out of gas before that happens.
That's interesting. And what about prices? Because some people anecdotally are saying that prices are going up. I mean, presumably airlines are missing out on some routes because they just can't fly them. Are they trying to make up the money elsewhere? What's happening?
OK, well, let's look at those long-haul routes. So if you are British Airways, Singapore Airlines, Cathay Pacific, you are charging a heck of a lot for your flights between Asia and Europe, and well, you can obviously charge whatever the market can bear, and that's happening because suddenly 5% of global capacity has been taken out of the market. That they're also having to fly much longer tracks, and so, for example, we've seen Qantas, which flies normally non-stop from Perth to London, it can't do that anymore. It's got to stop in Singapore to refuel because it has to follow such a strange course. And of course, you can't fly over Russia at the moment. So that's happening. In terms of prices in the next few weeks and months, actually, talking to the airlines, they say, yeah, the prices will go up, but that's because demand is increasing for Europe. People who would be going to the Gulf, or indeed going on Emirates, Qatar Airways, or Etihad to somewhere beyond the Gulf, they're just saying, OK, we'll go to Europe. And certainly for Spain and Portugal, prices are soaring because people are thinking, well, that's a long way from any trouble. Having said that, of course, there's going to be bargains for places like Cyprus and Turkey because they will be putting in some good hotel deals to attract people back.
Excellent. Half terms are coming up, so there are many people watching and listening to that with great concern that their flights are going to be too much, but get a bargain, everyone likes that.
Well, yeah, boss of EasyJet says buy now, but he would say that, wouldn't he?
He definitely would.
OK.
Great to see you in person.
Yeah,
Safe travels. Where are you off to next? I was fascinated by...
Oh, I'm off to beautiful Kosovo.
Fantastic. Well, enjoy. We'll see you again. Speak again real soon. Thanks, Simon. Thanks for being with us.
Thanks, Simon.
All right, well, stay with us here because we have got coming up next more analysis of the war in the Middle East to speak to the award-winning journalist Patrick Coburn. Now, the father of a schoolgirl who died following a meningitis outbreak in Kent says that young people deserve better protection.
Well, meanwhile, health officials are expected to face questions after more than 100 students were turned away while trying to get a vaccine for the disease yesterday. Well, let's bring in Molly Malone, who's been looking at this story, and a really moving statement from the father of one young girl who died.
Yeah, very much so. We've been reminded of the human cost of this disease, hearing from the father of Juliet Kenny, who was just 18. She died at the weekend. Within 12 hours, her father says, of going to hospital with symptoms of meningitis. Michael Kenny had said that his daughter had been fit, healthy and strong. He's calling now for more protection for young people from meningitis. I'll read you some of his words. He said, Juliet, who you can see on your screens, is a force in this world. With her beautifully positive energy, she spread fun, love and happiness to those around her, and she continues to do so now. The devastation of her loss to us, her family and friends is immeasurable. The work to protect young people has started. It needs to be more. Juliet's impact on this world must be lasting change. Now is the time to ensure families are safe from the impacts of meningitis B. So a clear call to action really there for better protection for young adults, young teenagers. We know that babies, as of 2015, get vaccinated for meningitis B, but that means that the current generation of older teenagers, university students, aren't vaccinated for it. There are vaccines for other forms of meningitis, but not this particular outbreak, which is meningitis B. This particular outbreak has been described by officials as unprecedented, and that's largely because of the rate at which it spread. They haven't seen the same extent in previous outbreaks of meningitis before, so that's what's been concerning them. Consequently, 2 people have lost their life, Juliet, one of them, and another 21-year-old student. And we know that there have been 27 confirmed or suspected cases, and they're updating at the moment those numbers. We get the latest at around 9:30 to give a sense of how much it's spreading. But because of that spread, they've rolled out an extended, wider use of the vaccine. So they've now said that anyone that attended club chemistry, which has been deemed the kind of centre of this outbreak, between 10 days, March the 5th and March the 15th, is entitled to get the vaccine. And they've also offering it to sixth form students at 4 schools in Kent, and also close contacts of people that have had confirmed or suspected cases. You can see the queues there. There's been a huge demand over the last few days. You can understand why people are really concerned about it. But there were reports yesterday suggesting that 100 people were turned away while trying to get the vaccine. That wasn't necessarily because there wasn't enough vaccines, but because staff weren't able to see the sheer number of people before the vaccine centre closed at 5 o'clock. So they have opened more as of today across Kent. And it looks at the moment, although they haven't said it, you can see there officially that the outbreak has been contained to Kent, although there have been confirmation of a student in London having a case, but they said, the UK Health Security Agency, that that is directly linked to the outbreak in Canterbury. But look, one of the issues is that lots of these students are going home. They're choosing to go home early for the Easter holidays, and we know that they break soon for Easter anyway. So questions, I'm sure, will be raised about how effective a sort of contained vaccination programme can be when people are choosing to leave the area.
Yeah, indeed, and we can see them already queuing up for their vaccination this morning. It's a long queue already, isn't it?
Opening in half an hour, yeah.
All right, Molly, really appreciate that. Thank you. And we'll report from you, of course, throughout the day on this story. Now, almost 3 weeks since the US-Israel war began on Iran, and the conflict continues to intensify. Amongst those being drawn in is Iraq, once again becoming a war zone after only recently regaining some stability after decades of conflict.
Well, let's bring in Patrick Coburn, who's a special correspondent at The Eye. Very good morning to you. Thanks so much for talking to us, Patrick. You covered both the first Gulf War and the second Gulf War. I wonder, first of all, what your feeling is about this third large regional conflict.
Well, I'm pretty well appalled, particularly as it's in some ways worse than the others, but we can't really see an end to it. Trump doesn't seem to know what he's going to do. The Iranians certainly aren't going to capitulate, and it's become a sort of a war that affects the rest of the world directly in a way that the previous conflicts didn't.
Patrick, Kamal here, morning to you. What have you made of the fact that Iran, despite us entering the third week and being pounded thousands and thousands of strikes by the US and Israel, has still been able to fire missiles and drones at Gulf nations?
Yeah, it is paradoxical. I mean, they've lost part of their leadership. They're being pounded every day, but militarily they're doing pretty well. I think they're doing it well because they said they prepared for this since the 12-day war last year when Israel attacked them and briefly the US dropped some bombs. So they knew this was coming. They prepared carefully for it. And it's not that difficult to do. I mean, the Strait of Hormuz, I don't know how many times I've written over the years that the Iranians might close it because it's an option, it was a nuclear option for them. But it's quite easy to do because you have these massive oil tankers, vastly expensive, very vulnerable. On the south side of the Gulf, you have, one of the biggest collections, the biggest collection in the world of oil refineries, liquefied natural gas plants, very delicate, very combustible, and one Iranian Revolutionary Guard with a send something in their direction, which will blow the whole thing up. And we've seen these, we've seen on television, we are seeing on television and elsewhere, flames leaping into the skies, tankers on fire. So it's their strategy is pretty effective, and they can go on doing it. However, pretty well ad infinitum, I think, because it requires so little to paralyze the whole Gulf and cut off the world from part of its oil and gas supply.
You say that Iran can go on ad infinitum. We're getting messages from the Trump administration as well as from Israel's Prime Minister that the war will end sooner than you think. So do you feel that if those two sides, the US and the Israelis, say, job done, we've achieved our aims and pull out, you think that there could be continuing action after that?
Absolutely, yes, because it's not in the Iranians' interest to do that. It's probably not really in the Israelis' interest to do that. Israel's strategy is pretty clear and going by what the Israeli press says, which is to do as much damage to Iran in future. So regardless of who's in charge in Tehran, the whole country will be degraded by the loss of its infrastructure and so forth. The Iranians need to show that they've got real leverage. If you do anything to us, then we can really strike a crippling blow at the world economy by cutting off oil and gas, by destroying these vastly expensive oil and gas facilities. So that gives them real power. So they'll want to, if there is a negotiated end to this, they'll want to say, right, we want no economic sanctions. We want a guarantee that we won't be attacked again. This is the second time they've been attacked. They say, which is clearly true, that negotiations were going on with the Trump administration at the time. So they'll want some guarantee. So they have every reason to inflict more pain on the rest of the Gulf states and on the rest of the world as well.
So, Patrick, look, with your experience in the region of war, where do you see this ending and when?
Well, I mean, that's the great problem, that nobody can really tell that. Washington, I mean, the White House doesn't seem to have even really thought about that at the time. I mean, I think there'll come a moment when, there will be serious negotiations, but that will have the Israelis and the Iranians, who both have strategies, unlike the US, will both have to be satisfied that it's in their interest to bring this war to an end. And I don't see that happening really for quite a long time. Israelis will go on destroying as much of Iran as they can. That will leave them as the sort of in alliance with the US as the most powerful state in the Middle East. The Iranians, as I said, in a curious way, despite all the damage, have become more powerful because they can show they've shown what they can do to the world economy. So they both have an interest in continuing this for the moment.
Well, Patrick Cockburn, special correspondent at The Eye, thank you so much for your thoughts this morning and your reflections on what's going on in the Middle East. We really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Patrick. Good morning to you. And just so fascinating there to hear from someone with such experience in the region who, has seen lots of this before.
First Gulf War in the early 90s, second Gulf War in the early noughties, and now this. But
just no idea how it's going to end.
Yeah.
Extraordinary.
Plenty more coverage, of course, of what's going on there shortly, but we've got something completely different for you now. And if you fancy a trip to the cinema this weekend, consider this one, Midwinter Break, starring Leslie Manville and Ciarán Hinds. It's a drama about a long married couple confronting their past and their present during a trip to Amsterdam.
Yeah, the story poses all sorts of questions about the nature of faith and commitment and is set against the backdrop of the troubles in Northern Ireland, of course, which the couple lived through. Here's a look.
We seem to have become exiles from each other, from the promises we made, the promise I made.
Why are we here, Stella?
I want to tell you something. It's something I've never really told anyone.
And I'm very pleased to say that Olivier Award-winning theatre veteran director Polly Findlay is here with us. It's her debut film, and delighted that you could join us and talk about it.
Thank you so much for having me.
And I'll start off with that, if I can, that this is your first feature film, isn't it?
That's right,
After years of working in the theatre, incredibly successfully. So why did you decide to change from the theatre to film?
Well, I think it's something that I'd always wanted to do, really, and this, in a way, felt like... I mean, I guess the way that I've always described it is that this felt, in a way, like the kind of ideal gateway drug from one end to the other, in that it's a film that's very much about performance and about the actors, and felt like it was something that I could really use the skill set that I'd developed in the theatre in terms of conversations with actors, how to build a backstory, and I guess also that thing, I hope, of really being able to lean into the audience's ability to decode behaviour and to really enjoy and relish the detail of two really fantastic acting performances.
And that comes through the performances of the actors. How was it different working with actors on screen versus working on the stage?
Well, I guess as a theatre director, what you're really trying to do in a rehearsal room is to sort of build an architecture for repeats. So you're trying to put together a process which means that once you've left, the actors are able to replicate what they're doing in a way that still feels spontaneous and fresh. Whereas making a film, I guess what you're trying to do is to create a sort of weather system that allows you to capture moments of improv or spontaneous invention and to bottle it.
So was there a fair bit of that?
Yes, I mean, so the film is very, very much about subtext, I think. So what we're really watching is these two actors at the absolute top of their game, really being generous with and responding to each other. So I guess there was always an element of the unexpected, and so much of this film is silent. Like the dialogue, in a way, is only one layer of the information that we're getting.
You really get that sense as well, because one minute they are incredibly tender with each other and sweet, or they sort of got in jokes, and the next minute they say absolutely devastating things to each other. Apparently out of nowhere, but you kind of sense that subtext.
Well, I think in a way anybody that's been in a long-term relationship can relate to that, right? I sort of feel like everybody knows what it is to have, over the course of a number of years, I mean, we talked about it as a sort of ballet between intimacy and separation, that sometimes you feel like I'm closer to you than I am to anybody in the world, and at other moments you think, how can it be that we're having to explain this thing again? And everybody knows that feeling.
So that exploration, then, what do you think that teaches us about relationships and about how we sort of interact with people? Because you're right, there's that thin line, isn't there, between that love and then very quickly sometimes it can go to the other side.
Yes, I mean, I think that's one of the things that really drew me to the film in the first place, is that it's unusual, I think, to see an examination of a couple at this stage in their lives with 40 years of marriage behind them. And of course, you know, in most love stories, in most movies, the structure that you see is of how people get together. You don't spend so much time looking at the sort of day-to-day work of how you keep those relationships going. And I think one of the things that I loved about it, and why in the end I do think it is a hopeful film, is that we're really seeing people working out at that stage in their life how it's possible to start a new chapter, even though they are in their 60s. There is a sense at the end of the film, I think, of beginning again.
Really interesting.
And do you feel that you've learnt something from the experience that you'll take back to theatre, or you just think, theatre day's gone, I'm now into film?
No.
What's your feeling about it?
I can't imagine not directing plays again. I mean, I think, you know, really... The joy of this particular project was in being able to spend that amount of time kind of at that level of close-up, in a way, working with these two brilliant actors and just sort of having faith in their ability to carry on finding things that were so sort of surprising and honest and true. So I hope that that's something that I'll be able to carry forward.
Did you find yourself having to stop yourself from tinkering too much or making them redo scenes? Because I guess in the theatre, you say you do the rehearsal, then you put them on stage and they have to do it, and you have to sit back and say, I hope you've done it right. But I guess with film, you can go, let's do another one, let's do another one, let's try another one. Did you have to...
Yes, I mean, I think that what was really wonderful about watching these guys work is that we all had quite a shared vocabulary, I think, because we've all got a theatre background. So I think we had quite a similar approach in terms of wanting to make sure that every time we did a take, that there was something new in terms of character options that we were finding. And both Leslie and Kieran were so endlessly generous with each other and with the process in terms of always throwing up something new for the other person to be responding to. And they were both great at taking those offers and always finding something new. So I guess in this respect, I sort of felt like quite often my job was getting out of the way and letting them find the thing that was organically unfolding.
You just wish that we were able to make mistakes and do it again.
Absolutely.
Don't do it live every time.
Not messing it up. It's so interesting. We can keep talking to you about this. I love the process of making these films. It's fascinating. So thank you very much for coming in and talking to us today.
Not at all. Thanks for having me.
Very moving and very profound. It was great. Polly Findlay, thanks very much indeed.
So nice to meet you. Thank you.
Now, it's a good day for the good people of Norwich, who now officially live in the best place in the country.
Yeah,
nice.
It's worth saying that's according to a panel of judges from the Sunday Times,
opinion.
who were won over by... It's very nice.
It is nice.
City's historic character. Norwich-based career coach Antonia Bartels joins us now from The Best Place to Live in the UK, as well as Tim Palmer, the writer and chief judge of the Sunday Times Best Places to Live Guide 2026. So welcome to both of you. Antonia, first of all, how does it feel to live in the best place in the UK? And were you surprised that it got the top spot?
Well, it's absolutely a privilege to live here. I've lived in Singapore and Melbourne and London, and I think Melbourne is brilliant, but Norwich is really special. It's got something that I haven't experienced in any other city.
And Tim, how do you guys end up deciding on the best place? What does the particular area need to have to get #1 spot?
Well, what we're looking for are the places that have, the most things, the most possible number of things that could bring you joy, and the smallest possible number of things that might make you annoyed or grumpy. And that can be anything from good schools and fast trains to good high streets, good cafes, pubs, good countryside. I think the most important thing of all for us is places that have a good sense of community with good people who are prepared to work hard to make their place as good as it can be. And, Norwich has got all of those things in spades.
And I was looking through your top 10, and to me it looked like most of the places were kind of smaller towns or cities. There was the suburbs in the case of Richmond, wasn't there, that came, I think, 9th. Do you think there's something in that? Do you think that bigger cities, there are issues around quality of life?
I think at the moment it is definitely a good time to be a smaller town. Because a lot of those bigger towns, they existed so that people could go and do their shopping in the big department stores and then spend a bit of time there after that. But I think, now so many of those shops have closed. Now so many of those bigger chain high streets are struggling a bit. Then, it's much better to be, a smaller place where, and what we see a lot is the efforts of a few people can make a big difference to the quality of life. People volunteering, people planting flowers, people starting interesting businesses. It's the things like that I think, now that we're losing a little bit of investment and some of our high streets are a bit sadder than they used to be, it's the efforts of individuals that really shine through.
And Antonia, what would you say was so good about Norwich? How would you sum it up? Do some of the things that we've heard from Tim there strike a chord with you?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's got a really thriving business community, and there's a huge sense of collaboration. People will get together. In fact, I was in a taxi last night coming back from London, and I ended up speaking to the taxi driver about a potential business opportunity. So there's a real sense of people coming together and collaborating. It's really unique in that way, and it's a fantastic place to raise a family as well.
Yeah, and we're seeing some lovely shots of it, top shots there of in at dusk. And I've waited a long time to be able to ask someone this question about Norwich, and I wonder, Tim, how much does this have to do with the pedestrianisation of Norwich city centre?
Yeah, we have. That was a very long time ago. We did have a little vow that we would mention Alan Partridge as little as we possibly could when we decided on this. But you know, there's a serious point there in that the Norwich city centre is one of its absolute strong points, and the walkability as a city is one of the great things about it. And again, compared with, you know, so many other towns and cities, that's, you know, the centre there is a fantastic place to spend time. It's got the market at the heart of it. It's got some of the best independent shops in the country, and you know, the fact that you can walk and not get hit by a car, well, that's even better.
Alan wasn't happy, but I guess he'll be happy now that it's #1 in the country, maybe.
I wasn't happy.
No, Alan, not Anna.
Oh, Alan. I thought you meant me. I'm very happy. I'm delighted. And Tim, also, how does this year compare to other years? Was there some places that kind of slid out of the charts, had sort of suffered a bit of a decline? How are our towns and cities looking?
Yeah, I mean, it's not the best time, given, you know, it's not the best time, as many people will know, given, as I've said, the state of the high street, the number of empty shops there are about. But, you know, the great thing about this list is it does show that there are lots of places that are doing things right, that are really good places to live, really good places to spend time. And it's really nice to, you know, to be able to celebrate that, to highlight that and highlight the work of the people who make them as good as they are.
Absolutely right. Tim, Anthony, thank you so much for being with us. Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
Tim for the list and Anthony for living in the best city in the country.
Yeah, good choice.
Nice. I genuinely can't tell you how long I've waited to ask someone seriously about the pedestrianisation of Norwich City Centre. Alan Partridge reference. So you two looking at me gone out, but there are people out there that know. If you know, you know. He got it. He got it. It's all about us.
I missed it.
I think you should get out a little bit.
In Norwich?
Yeah, Norwich. Maybe in the city centre.
What have you got for us, Jackie?
Yes, what coming up after the break? After our show, actually, Thomas Tuchel will announce his squad for the friendlies upcoming this month. But it's the second last squad before he announces his World Cup squad. Time running out. We've been given a tip about someone who is probably going to be included, so we'll tell you that after the break. And also, great night last night for English clubs in Europe. We'll have a few goals too.
Well, hello, and thank you for watching The Wrap every night of the week. We will be joined by the very best commentators to explain the how and the why.
This cannot stand.
Stupid thing to do.
He did know what he was doing.
You can expect more analysis.
This is going to get deeper. I think it's going to end up with Russia.
Is war inevitable?
What he's interested in is a deal.
That doesn't rule out strikes.
I disagree.
And laughs along the way. Plus, a look at tomorrow's headlines. The Wrap. Everything wrapped up for you from 10.
I'm Dominic Waghorn, Sky's International Affairs Editor, covering a world that seems to be unravelling. War, unrest, revolutions.
It's not his country, it's ours.
They have succeeded for the first time in their country's history in removing a leader from power.
No freedom!
Sky News, the full story first. There was fighting here, but there's clearly now a lull, and they're using it to bring up more ammunition. This is a mass exodus in which Russia is hemorrhaging some of its brightest and its best. According to the local weather channel, there have been more than 2,500 lightning strikes and flash flooding, all on top of this week's lethal tornado. What stays with you most in this job is some of the people you meet. What is your worst fear about what the Russians want to do to the children?
They're just boosting demographics by stealing young people.
Would you like to take the opportunity, Mr. President, on Sky News to invite Barack Obama to come here? Mr. Trump, are you running for president? Can you confirm it?
We're going to take a look, a very serious look.
On that day, we saw your fighters killing women, killing children. Was that a mistake? Did you go too far? You couldn't control your fighters? The full force of the state is being used to crush any protest. Free wherever you get your news. It's half an hour now past the deadline that Hamas issued, and we've now seen a third barrage of rockets coming in. Another alarm. The mood here is jittery and nervous. We're seeing the world get more and more divided, and it's our job to try to make sense of it all.
The best thing about being a Sky News journalist?
They call him the king of the jungle.
Being a Sky News journalist.
Yusra al-Baghir has this report.
And this is what's left of it.
As a woman of colour, how did the Harris campaign speak to you?
People risk their lives to speak to us for this report.
Mr. Zuma, Sky News.
We're trying to see as much as we can.
Well, Jackie is with us, of course. Jackie, morning to you. And I'm very happy that we can talk about Forest winning in Europe last night a little bit at some point.
Yeah, not yet.
Wait until time.
Can we just talk about Thomas Tuchel first of all?
Fine.
Because straight after our show, pretty much, he's going to announce his England squad for the friendlies against Uruguay and Japan, and everyone's probably thinking, well, you know, it's friendly, so what? Well, kind of running out of time between now and the World Cup. There are only 4 more friendly matches. This squad is important because we are running out of time. Lots of people are out of form. People are injured that he might well have picked. We've had a hint, more than a hint, that Kobbie Mainoo is going to get a recall, and he has not been picked under Thomas Tuchel. In fact, he played in the Euros final in Germany in Berlin in 2024. But we've been given the hint through our friends at Sky Sports News that he will be picked in this squad. Other chats are, you know, Jude Bellingham, even though he's been injured, will he get a call up? You know, Dominic Calvert-Lewin, would he get a call up? Harry Maguire's been in great form for Manchester United. Will he get a call up? But that's all to come this morning. I guess we'll get the squad before he does his press conference at 11, so we can talk about that. OK, let's talk about Forest, Kamari.
Why not?
Yeah, it was a really good night for them last night. I mean, they've got such a big match at the weekend against Spurs. You know, flirting with relegation. It's been a really terrible season in terms of the Premier League, as it has been for Spurs. Both play each other at the weekend. Well, they play each other at the weekend. And it's a really important match, and they will want to get 3 points from that. So 9 changes were made for the Europa League match last night. And it was a good night. It was a good night. It was another match, but it was a good night. Here's a quick taste of the action. It was a good night all round last night. So 1-0 down from the first leg. Ryan Yates with a great strike to make it 2-0 on the night for Forest after Nicolas Dominguez opened the scoring in Denmark against Midtjylland. But Midtjylland got a goal back to take the match to extra time and penalties. Forest got their first 3 penalties. Midtjylland missed their first 2. So it was up to this guy to score to keep the match going, and he slipped over. That was the end of that. So Forest are through to play Porto. Anna is laughing.
No, I'm cringing. I'm cringing. I hate watching missed penalties.
It's a shame about that pitch.
I just feel for them.
I know, and they've missed the other 2 as well, which made it even worse. Right, so Aston Villa, 2-0 winners against Lille. 3-0 winners over the 2 legs. John McGinn with the opening goal at Villa Park after some very quick thinking from Emi Martinez, who really celebrated this goal. Unai Emery has won this competition 4 times. Will it be his year again? And Crystal Palace are through to the Europa Conference League quarter-finals after beating Larnaca 2-1 on the night after extra time. Ismail Assar with both goals. Great night for him. Larnaca end of the night with 9 men. And first European quarter-final for 30 years for Forest. So
wow, it's very exciting.
It's really, really nice. Now, Luke Littler last night, you know, it's week 7 of the Darts Premier League, and he won. And you're probably thinking, well, you know, he's always winning, so what? But he really wasn't winning last night. He was 5-0 down and went on to beat Gerwyn Price 6-5. He said afterwards, I've got no idea how I've done that. I was gone. His words, not mine. Anyway, great win. And that just goes to show that, you know, he's just got that extra thing, hasn't he? He's just got that extra thing, which is he knows when to sort of put the hammer down when he's under most pressure. We can move on to tennis. Fran Jones last night. Yes. You may or may not know her. People in tennis know her very well, but she beat her childhood hero in Miami, Venus Williams. Venus Williams has played Miami 23 times. But Fran Jones, who had a poster of her on the wall as a child and said goodnight to her every night before she went to bed, and said afterwards, she is the reason that I play tennis at all, because Fran Jones has been born with a condition where she's only got 3 fingers on each hand and only 7 toes, and she was told, you will never be able to play tennis. Wow. But she does. This is one of the key events in the calendar. She bowed to her, as you can see. She went to the net and she hugged her, and she just well, it's just like meeting your idols.
Yeah. Meeting your idols and beating them.
And beating
them. Amazing.
Venus, 45. How
who did you have?
Yeah, who was your idol?
Many footballers. I mean,
footballers.
Sadly.
Who was yours?
For United, Eric Cantona, maybe.
Starsky and Hutch.
Starsky and Hutch on your walls.
The original ones, because I'm really old.
Mine was Goldie Hawn.
Oh, was it?
Love to meet Goldie Hawn.
Yeah. I liked her in Private Benjamin. Anyway,
and then
we
beat her at
digress.
tennis. Yeah. Top stories next.
The best thing about being a Sky News journalist?
I'll take you behind the scenes here for Election Night Live. They have gone up and up.
Being a Sky News journalist.
Ed Conway, Sky News, is anyone going to talk to us? Mortgage rates did go up very sharply during your time in office. Here it is.
First off, just the scale of what we're looking at.
Our data shows it's been happening. Question is why it hasn't been stopped.
Hello and a very good morning. It's 9 o'clock. This is Mornings with Jones and Melbourne. I'm Anna.
And I'm Kamali. Thanks for starting your day with us. Here's how we're looking.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says Israel will hold off attacks on Iranian gas fields after a request from Donald Trump, and says the war will end a lot faster than people think.
Loud bangs reported in Dubai overnight after an alert warning of potential missiles coming in. We'll be live from the UAE.
The father of a schoolgirl who died following a meningitis outbreak in Kent says the loss is immeasurable and calls for better protection for young people.
As households here prepare for increasing costs because of the war in the Middle East, we're going to speak to the Chief Executive Officer of Rural Action Derbyshire about those needing support who use heating oil.
And we join the new drone squad launched as part of the government's new crackdown on waste criminals. Hello, a very good morning. Israel has attacked Iran again after Benjamin Netanyahu said at the request of Donald Trump he'd hold off further strikes on Iran's South Pars gas field. He also said the war will end a lot faster than people think.
Now, Iran responded, hitting Bahrain, Kuwait and the United Arab Emirates. And this morning, Tehran says that they are still able to build missiles. Meanwhile, the Iranian foreign minister has told the UK that providing military bases for the US will be considered as participation in the aggression. We'll have more on all the latest developments in just a moment. But first, here's our international affairs editor, Dominic Waghorn, who's been hearing from a spokesperson for the Iranian Foreign Ministry in Tehran.
You cannot expect a country that is under military aggression to exercise restraint. You have to direct your call to those aggressors. They started this aggression. They have to stop.
It sounds, though, to people listening, therefore, that Iran is prepared to escalate at whatever the cost. And we've heard from your colleagues saying this is not the time for diplomacy. This is the time to defend Iran. But I think people listening are desperate to hear there's some kind of progress. Is there any kind of olive branch you can offer to your enemies to say, there is something you can talk about, a way out of this crisis before it engulfs the whole region and possibly further beyond?
Do you think it would be really realistic to offer olive branch to those who want to behead you? They are killing our elites. They are targeting our leaders. So we are facing a combination of acts of terrorism and acts of aggression and terrorism. And this is unprecedented. So this killing spree has to stop. They have killed so many people across Iran. So you cannot expect the country that is defending itself against this barbaric act of aggression to show olive branch to those who knows no boundary in targeting your country.
Well, our correspondent Sally Lockwood reports now from Dubai.
Very little change here. We've got quite used to the morning incoming missile attacks, which happened around 7 a.m. this morning here. We got an emergency alert on our phones, and then it was followed by some very loud blasts, which sounded quite closer than normal, some of them. We've since heard that the missiles and drones that were fired at the UAE this morning have been successfully intercepted without any damage or injuries that we're aware of. But this came around the same time as morning prayer, and it's especially significant today because it's Eid al-Fitr, which marks the end of the holy month of Ramadan, and morning prayer is especially beautiful and quite long for Eid. And we were listening to that this morning at the same time as we heard the loud blasts of air defence in the sky, which really highlighted what people have been going through during this holy month of Ramadan, which is such a sacred time in the Muslim calendar. But it wasn't just the UAE that was attacked this morning. Bahrain, Kuwait and Saudi have all reported incoming missile and drone attacks, and Kuwait is actually reporting a drone strike on one of its 3 major oil refineries there. Of course, we're now seeing that these attacks on Gulf energy infrastructure are continuing, and it is a real concern for Gulf nations. It shows a real escalation in this war. And on that, Donald Trump held a phone call with the UAE's president yesterday, no doubt discussing this very subject. And news came that an $8 billion package of arms and defences is being expedited to the UAE. They include air defences and anti-drone systems, we understand, according to Secretary of State Marco Rubio. And that does suggest that the UAE is having to make preparations to fight this war for potentially a very long time, no matter what Donald Trump or Benjamin Netanyahu may say about the timeline that they have in their heads. Certainly, I think for Gulf countries, they're preparing for this to last a significant amount of time. And the UN Human Rights Chief has said that targeting Gulf energy infrastructure does mark a new dangerous phase in this war. And when Donald Trump says, you know, it's going to end sooner sooner than you think. I think when you hear from the likes of Qatar, who say it's going to take years for their energy exports to recover from the attacks that they've seen so far, it's very clear that for Iran's neighbours, they're preparing for the consequences of this war to last well beyond whatever Donald Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu may be thinking about in terms of some sort of conclusion to the war as they know it.
Well, yeah, a real sense from Sally there that attacks continuing to happen at the same kind of pace as they've seen in the last couple of weeks. And despite Benjamin Netanyahu saying last night that the war would end faster than people thought, and Donald Trump repeatedly talking about the war ending soon. But I guess there are lots of questions about when the war will end, when the two sides, Israel and the US, decide their objectives have been met, because it's clear that their objectives are different. That was actually confirmed by the US Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, yesterday at a congressional hearings, that the stated objectives of the two countries are different. So at what point do they say we've met our aims? And then what happens after that? Even if they do decide to stop their attacks on Iran, will Iran continue to strike out?
Well, that'll be the question, won't it? Because divergent war aims, so they can both claim victory at some point if they so choose to. But remember, if this Iranian regime stays in power, now having been blooded by the US and Israel, what chance that they're going to want to have discussions with Israel and the US following this? For the Israelis, I think that they just want to see that country as decimated as possible. The US may well have different aims because of the impact on the US economy, because of the gas prices and oil prices. But the Iranians seem able to keep firing missiles. As Sally was saying from the UAE, more interceptions recorded there. Bahrain saying that there have been a number of missiles headed towards them that were shot down. Even a major oil refinery in the north of Israel was hit by an Iranian missile. So extraordinary that you would think, after thousands of strikes by the US and Israel, 3 weeks into this war, the Iranians are still firing missiles and drones out into the region. And
so they're still manufacturing them.
Indeed.
Now then, let's move on and talk about an issue that's affecting lots of people here. The government is saying that it's going to pay to clear up thousands of tonnes of illegally dumped waste in the north of England. Yeah, fly tipping is a huge problem all across the country, and one that we have been following pretty closely for months. Now, the Environment Agency is determined to get on top of things, and as well as clearing up the mess, they'll be using new drone squads to help spot illegal dump sites. Dan Whitehead reports.
It is a site that has become all too familiar. Hundreds of thousands of tonnes of illegally dumped waste. Sky News has reported on the scourge of waste sites across the country for more than a year. Now a new government plan that it hopes will finally sort it.
It can be used very effectively for evidence gathering. The photographs we can take from the sky, it paints the picture of the significant level of impact that this has had on the countryside.
James is one of 33 new drone pilots recruited by the Environment Agency. Kit's being tested here at Hodes Wood in Kent, a 30,000-tonne illegal waste site that the EA has been clearing since last June. The tech is just one part of a series of new measures.
This 10-point plan includes buzzwords like fast intelligence handling. Essentially what it means is the EA wants to get in quicker and prevent situations like here at Hodes Wood. It's costing around £10 million to clear this up. They want to get to sites before they get too big, and that's been a really big frustration amongst members of the public who question why authorities don't act sooner.
Well, our own waste crime survey suggests that only 27% of waste crime is reported to the authorities, and we can't act on what we don't know about. So we are asking people to stand by us, report anything, even the slightest detail. It could be the piece of intelligence that helps us to act.
Why have some of the sites, like Epping, like Wigan, been able to take root before any action is taken?
This is a societal issue.
But the public for months and months have been calling, and there's no closure orders or bollards put in. So why is that? Is it resources? I mean, there's no blame, but you're stretched, I presume.
Well, we try and use the resources the resources we have to have the most impact in the best way possible, and that's why that early intelligence is important to us, so we can be able to target our approach.
The EA says it closed around 700 illegal waste dumps last year, which may well have grown into huge sites like this. But it still costs the UK economy around £1 billion annually, a cost to taxpayers and legitimate waste companies struggling to survive.
It's very frustrating to see them doing what they should be doing, dealing with permits, paying for subsistence fees, paying for consultants, paying for professional advice, and then down the road we see what's happening at Hodes Wood and Kidlington and Over and Wigan and Northwich, and apparently a blind eye is being turned to that while my clients are doing the right thing, so frustration doesn't begin to cover it.
News that the government will now pay to clear 48,000 tonnes of waste from 3 sites in the north of England is welcome. But organised criminal gangs continue to avoid millions in landfill tax. The EA wants the public to be its eyes and ears, while it uses the latest technology to try and stop them.
Well, Dan joins us now live from Wigan. Morning again to you, Dan. Excellent reporting this morning on this story that you've been covering in quite a bit of detail. Just take us through the situation there and what the government have proposed.
Yeah, look, the sort of quick solution that the government has announced this morning with a bit of fanfare is that they're going to be spend, well, they haven't said the amount, but it's going to be probably tens of millions of pounds to clear up 3 sites in the north of England. We've been up here in Wigan over the last few months reporting on this north-south divide. A lot of the residents, the MP here, angry really that the money, the millions of pounds is being spent down in Kidlington in Oxfordshire, Hodes Wood in Kent to clear up the sites, but not up here in the north. The government has addressed that this morning. You can see we're beside the enforced closure fence here next to this dump here in Wigan. Tens of thousands of tonnes of rubbish, which as the crow flies is about 5 metres away from the kids' playground at this school and 10 metres away from the nearest house. It's had a real impact on the residents here. There was a fire last year, a major incident declared. The kids had to close, the school was closed for 3 days. So the government are throwing cash at this. They're going to be clearing up this site and 2 others here in the north of England. Of course, there's a bigger question as to how they can stop this happening again. And that's where this 10-point plan comes in that the Environment Agency have announced. There's lots of things in it. And primarily, it's about early intervention, getting the public reports in so that the EA can come and put the blockades and these fences in before they grow to this side. But there's other things they're doing as part of this. They're looking at removing permits, suspending permits for waste carriers who don't play by the rules, naming and shaming companies involved. When it comes to the site here in Wigan, though, look, there is relief and one of the residents said they're over the moon. Some are angry that it got to this stage in the first place. We were chatting the last hour to the local MP, Josh Simons, Labour MP for Makerfield. This is what he had to make of the announcement.
Just behind me, this dump, on the other side of the huge waste pile is a primary school. The primary school playing fields where the kids play outside, they do their egg and spoon race in the summer. They've not been able to use that now for almost 18 months. And after we've done this, I'm going to go to the primary school, to their assembly, and tell them that the government stepped up. It's going to clean up this site and they will be able to use their playing field again. That will make those kids, their parents, the families and the whole community really happy.
So while Josh is in the school telling the kids, that's good news for them. The argument amongst lots of the residents, not just here in Wigan, but there's other big sites. There's huge sites down in Gloucester, in Epping, elsewhere, saying it's all very well the Environment Agency saying, look, we want to work with the public to be the eyes and ears. You report it will come quicker. But many people said for months and months they've been saying that the rubbish has been dumped here and nothing happened. And there's a big question of just how under-resourced the Environment Agency is to tackle this problem. Some people say it should be transferred to something like the National Crime Agency, because this is not just one person with their white van dumping a mattress. This is organised criminal gangs, and they are making millions out of this. Just think that you can buy a bit of brownfield site for £20,000, £30,000 and around £125 a tonne. That's what they should be paying for landfill tax. You multiply that by tens and tens of thousands of tonnes, you can see how lucrative this is for the organised criminal gangs. And I think the Environment Agency, DEFRA, big announcements today, but they are going to have a big fight on their hands to actually enforce this. People have told me off the record that they find it hilarious, these measures, allegations that they're going to, proposals that they're going to make clean-up squads and do unpaid hours for 20 hours to clean up areas like this. These are organised criminal gangs. They flaunt their money online and they simply think that they continue buying cheap plots of land, dumping tens of thousands of tonnes of rubbish and getting away with it because it's very hard to bring these prosecutions.
Absolutely. All right, Dan, for now, Ian Wigan, thank you for that. More from Dan and team, of course, throughout the day. Excellent reporting there on those illegal waste sites. Just extraordinary spots.
Horrendous to have to live near one of those.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Do stay with us here on Mornings with Jones and Melbourne. Coming up next, we're going to speak to a representative of the civil rights group Liberty, as Essex Police have announced they're going to pause their use of live facial recognition cameras after the technology showed an ethnic bias.
What's the best thing about being a Sky News presenter?
We've done the work and the reading, so you don't have to.
Being a Sky News presenter.
Hello and welcome. Westminster, the heart of British politics.
I'm so sorry about what happened to you.
So what on earth is going on?
It's not true.
Can I tell you what I think? It's really unusual.
Mornings with Richard Frost.
Let's crack on. Let's get started.
What's the best thing about being a Sky News journalist?
Who's funnier?
Being a Sky News journalist.
A special edition of The World with me, Yalda Hakim.
Pakistan has the right to respond.
You're like, what?
Historic day here today. Congratulations, this is a huge moment. But what happens now?
Now, Essex Police says it's now operating live facial recognition cameras after a temporary pause to its usage following a study that found the technology identified more black people than other ethnic groups.
Yeah, the cameras are mounted on vans and designed to identify people who are on watch lists. Essex Police says it believes the issue's been corrected by updating the algorithm that's used. Well, let's bring in the Director of Liberty, Akiko Hart, for more on this. Akiko, morning to you. So what do we know that Essex Police are actually doing right now? Have they paused the use of this technology?
Good morning. Thank you. So we have limited information at the moment. We understand that Essex Police paused the use of facial recognition cameras for 6 months and has restarted them. So just to give a little bit of background here. So facial recognition technology is a really powerful and intrusive surveillance tool that's used by the police and that's been rolled out across the country at pace, but without any safeguards or legislation. And there's been a growing body of evidence, a really concerning body of evidence around racial bias in the technology. So what happened specifically in Essex was that there was a study conducted on the specific cameras and algorithms that Essex police were using, and it found racial bias. It found that black people were more likely to be misidentified. Beyond that, it also found that the tech wasn't particularly accurate more broadly. So only 50% of the people on the watch list, so this was using actors rather than the general public, only 50% were correctly identified. So big concerns about racial bias and accuracy, and they paused it for 6 months. And I think all of this can seem quite abstract sometimes, but that racial bias has real life consequences. So what we saw a few weeks ago was Alvi Chowdhury, a British Asian man who was wrongly identified through facial recognition technology, and he was arrested at home. And he was arrested for a crime he didn't commit in a city 100 miles away that he'd never been to. And he was held for 10 hours in a police station. And, you know, beyond the trauma and the distress of being arrested, it has real life consequences because Alvi, for example, needs security clearance for his job, and therefore being arrested and having that on record affects that. So we welcome the fact that Essex Police did halt its trial for 6 months, but what we can't have is a situation where police forces across the country are just marking their own homework. What we need to see is this tech and the rollout of this tech being halted and some common sense safeguards and some proper legislation being put in place so we can all, we can all be protected, and we need tech that keeps us safe.
As I understand it, and we will read the statement from Essex Police shortly, but they say they worked on the algorithm, and they say after a second academic assessment, they essentially say they were confident that it was fit to use. And they also say they'll continue to monitor all the results to ensure there's no risk of bias against any one section of the community. So do you feel reassured by that?
I don't feel reassured, no, because what we have at the moment is a situation where there's no national framework or guardrails around this. So each police force is doing its own thing and marking its own homework. You've got different types of watch lists across the country. So, for example, on some watch lists, we've seen children as young as 12. The Met Police has far, far broader kind of watch lists and criteria on watch lists than other police forces. Different police forces seem to be conducting different studies, and this isn't a good or sensible way to roll out this kind of powerful technology. So what we need is for the use of facial recognition technology to be halted until we have proper studies in place and until we have that kind of national framework and those safeguards in place.
And Akiko, it's not just you at Liberty and other civil rights groups saying this. The Home Office were told this by the National Physical Laboratory, who ran tests on this back last year. The Information Commissioner as well has concerns about the use of the tech. But in principle, though, because police forces do like to use the tech as an investigatory tool, are you against the idea of facial recognition technology?
So I don't think this is a conversation about being pro or anti-technology or pro or anti-facial recognition technology. This is about being pro-safe technology. So, there will be instances where facial recognition technology, may be useful, for example, but it needs to be used in a really proportionate way. So, for example, for the most serious crimes. But what we have at the moment are these cameras being deployed on all of our high streets, in all of our towns, but without any clear sense of how safe they are. For me, it's a red line that what is being deployed at the moment is technology that's racially biased. That shouldn't be a controversial thing to say. The police and the government should not be deploying technology that we know is racially biased. So that needs to stop, and we need some proper safeguards in place.
Well, Akiko, I spoke to the Minister and I put some of this to her earlier, Emma Reynolds, who said that, of course, the Home Office would probably take a look at the situation in Essex specifically. I mean, Essex Police say that they are willing to roll this technology out again now that they have gone through the process of this academic study. How do we compare in this country to other countries that use facial recognition technology?
So there's huge variation across the world. In the EU AI Act has made it much harder to use facial recognition technology. So we're really kind of like out of kilter with our European counterparts, for example. So it does depend. But certainly in this country, we've got a really high proportion of cameras generally. We've got a really high level of surveillance in this country compared to most other democracies. And I think there needs to be a wider conversation that we need to be having about how comfortable we are with the level of surveillance that we kind of currently operate in compared to the fact that those common sense safeguards and laws just aren't in place.
Yeah, and there are two types, aren't there? There's the live facial recognition technology, which there is at least one case that caught up an individual called Sean Thompson, who was wrongly arrested as a result of that. And then the retrospective stuff, that is one that caught Alvi Chowdhury, who was accused of a crime committed in Milton Keynes when he lived in Southampton. What's your understanding of how the police are using the two different texts differently?
So they're using both at the moment, but it's live facial recognition technology that's being rolled out at pace through vans and cameras and static cameras across towns and cities across the country. But you're right, the Alvi Chowdhury case was the man who was wrongly identified in Southampton for a crime he didn't commit in Milton Keynes that was using retrospective facial recognition technology. And any legislation we need to see needs to cover both. But also, I think we need to be really forward-looking around this, because at the moment, we're just talking about faces, but actually the tech is advancing so quickly that actually soon we're going to be talking about voice recognition and iris recognition. And so we need to be future-proofing this technology for us and our children. And actually, you mentioned earlier on the Biometrics Commissioner, offices like that are talking about this being a generational moment, that we need to just take a beat and hit pause and really try and think about what kind of safeguards do we need in place, in relation to this really powerful technology to keep us and our children safe.
I mean, and you'll know that the government say that this is the biggest breakthrough since sort of the use of DNA in investigatory work. So where does this go next, do you think? What are the police saying as well? I said that some police forces do seem to like using this technology. Is there any concern within the police that you're aware of about its use?
Yeah, so there are mixed views within the police, and that in itself is interesting. So there's been a consultation on the use of facial recognition technology, which many people and individuals have contributed to, and what we'd like to see in the next few months is a commitment to legislation.
OK. Akika, really good to speak with you, as always. Thanks very much for being with us this morning.
Thank you.
As I mentioned, we have got a statement from Essex Police, so let me just read it to you. They say, based on the fact there was potential bias, the force decided to pause deployments while we worked with the algorithm software provider to review the results and seek to update the software. We then sought further academic assessment. As a result of this work, we have revised our policies and procedures and are now confident that we can start deploying this important technology as part of policing operations to trace and arrest wanted criminals. We'll continue to monitor all results to ensure that there's no risk of bias against any one section of the community. So that statement from Essex Police.
Yeah, really interesting. It's going to be one, I think, that continues to cause some disquiet in some communities, as there is concern about that bias. But, of course, the government want to use this technology because it's useful for officers. So I think we're going to continue to hear arguments around both sides of this.
Yeah, there'll be a lot of tension there, won't there? Do stay with us, we've got lots coming up. We're going to be hearing from the CEO of Rural Action Derbyshire on the impact of the rising cost of heating oil and whether the Prime Minister's support package is going to be enough to ease that pressure.
Now, energy bills are expected to rise by more than £300 this summer as the war in the Middle East pushes up prices for wholesale natural gas. Meanwhile, households are struggling with the rising cost of heating oil. They're set to receive funding from the government.
Yeah, well, the Prime Minister has announced a £53 million support package. So let's find out if it's enough and is going to the right places. We can talk to the Chief Executive Officer of Rural Action Derbyshire, Emma Simpson, now. Very good morning to you, Emma. Thanks so much for talking to us. So heating oil prices aren't protected by the energy price cap. So give us a sense of how much of a problem this has proved for people in your area who use heating oil.
In Derbyshire, we're finding that the cost of heating oil has gone up from about £300 for 500 litres to about £800. Now, that's a significant increase, and one that a lot of people and households just aren't able to meet.
And we have actually heard from the Competition and Markets Authority talking about this, haven't we? And they said that heating oil suppliers in some cases are cancelling orders. In other cases, they think increasing the prices possibly by too much, but they're certainly increasing prices. Is that something that you've witnessed, the fact that orders are being cancelled? And are you concerned about the rate at which prices are going up?
Yes, I mean, the rate that prices have gone up was incredibly quick. And on the 28th of February, when the invasion started, the price the day before was about 55 pence a litre, so that's about £300 or a bit more for 500 litres. And literally by the Monday, Tuesday, the prices had gone up to 65p, and then it went up and up and up, and now we're looking at about £1.60 a litre.
Wow. So it's gone up really significantly. Just explain to people who don't understand how sort of rural homes with heating oil work, just how the system works, how you get the oil and where it goes into the system in your home.
Yeah, so the minimum order quantity for heating oil is 500 litres. So unlike gas and electricity, where you can really budget, you know what you're going to be spending, the cost of oil is really volatile. It goes up and down all the time. But this sort of increase is unprecedented. So 500 litres, most people are budgeting about £300. So that might be 4 times a year. But now it's really hard because they can't find that extra money. There's no transparency or regulation, and the people that I think that it's not happening so much now that people were ordering, paying for their oil, getting an order confirmation, and then the day before it was due to be delivered, they were told it was cancelled and they had to reorder. And in some cases that their money would be refunded in 3 to 5 working days. Well, if their money isn't being refunded for 3 to 5 working days, they haven't got any more money to then buy oil now if they need it now.
And this £53 million that's been announced by the government, they say that it's going to go to households most exposed to rising heating oil costs. Presumably that's good news. Do you know what it means for your area? Because it's broken down different amounts for different areas, isn't it?
It's great that the government have recognised this and have got the 53 million for the UK. What we're not clear about is what the criteria is going to be. So in 2022, when the government gave support to people off Mains gas network, it was £200 per household that were eligible. So they had to meet certain criteria. And generally that was people who were low-income families that were on benefits and pension credit. So that was the criteria for eligibility. Now this time, the government are giving guidelines to local authorities, but it's up to the local authorities themselves to actually decide what the criteria is going to be. And the other thing that we're not clear about is what realistically it means for a household. So what does 53 million equal per household? I've been hearing it might be only about £70. But even if it was £200, that's a help, but it's still a long way off how much the price has actually increased by.
Yeah, I suppose anything would help that can go towards it, but you need it to be adequate to cover the costs. And I wonder more broadly sort of how people in rural communities are feeling about this government at the moment, with this offer of help perhaps not enough, and with some of the issues, let's call them that the government have had with rural farming communities.
Well, yes, with rural communities in general, it's not just the cost of heating oil, which obviously only affects people who are on heating oil, but in rural areas, generally, most households need a car, so the cost of petrol and diesel has gone up significantly. For those that are farming, the cost of fertiliser and red diesel has gone up significantly. And there's bound to be a knock-on of costs, because it's going to cost more to deliver food and all the other services that people in rural areas need. So the price of everything's going to go up. So it does feel like it's going to hit rural communities harder than people in towns and cities. But you know, we're a pretty resilient bunch, and we'll find a way to support people and help them to get through this difficult time.
That's a good message at the end.
Yeah, good luck with your work, Emma. Emma Simpson there from Rural Action Derbyshire. We really appreciate your time.
Thanks, Emma. One and two.
Thank you.
Now then, some breaking news to bring you now, an update on the number of cases of meningitis. We've just in the last few minutes had the figures from the UK Health Security Agency, who have said that the number of cases linked to the outbreak in Kent has risen to 29 from 27. Meanwhile, the father of a schoolgirl who died following that meningitis outbreak is saying that young people deserve better protection.
Right, let's bring in our correspondent Molly Malone for a bit more on this. Molly, morning to you. So the numbers of cases ticking up.
Yeah, ticking up, but they appear to be slowing slightly. If we're looking at the last few days, we did have 27 cases on Wednesday to now 29 cases, but a slightly smaller jump than we'd seen in previous days. And that 29 amounts to 18 confirmed cases and 11 suspected or probable, and that's because they need to do further analysis on them. But taking the latest numbers to a 29 total, and we know, of course, that 2 people have died from it. This outbreak, as we've been saying, has been described as unprecedented, and largely that's because of how quickly it's been spreading. It's different to previous patterns that they've seen. They're still looking to try and analyse it, scientists. They're still trying to grapple with why that's happened. Some suggestion, for example, from the chief scientific officer, said that perhaps the bacteria itself may have mutated or evolved to become basically better at transmitting. And obviously we had that so-called super spreader event at Club Chemistry in Canterbury, which is why they've offered this targeted sort of vaccine programme. You can see people queuing at the University of Kent there. We know this morning that they've actually opened slightly earlier. They were meant to open at 9, but they're putting on more vaccines for people, and that's partly because yesterday they had some 100 people who were rejected from the vaccine that they've been queuing up for, simply because they couldn't get to the amount of people that they wanted to in time. But in terms of this targeted vaccine programme, they've now offered 2,300 vaccines, and actually the UK Health Security Agency in the last few minutes have actually said that their early analysis shows that this vaccine is effective, so it's having the desired effect that they want to, but they do want to do some more analysis of it. But as we've been discussing this morning, we've been reminded of the kind of human impact, the human cost.
Yeah, this very moving statement from the father of one of the girls who died.
Yeah, exactly. So this was 18-year-old sixth form student, Juliet Kenny. She was just 18 years old. You can see her there when she died at the weekend. Her father said within just 12 hours of going to hospital with her symptoms of meningitis, he said his daughter had been fit, healthy and strong before her death, and he's calling for greater protection for young people. I'll read you some of his words, as you say, Anna, they're pretty powerful. He said, "Juliet is a force in this world. With her beautifully positive energy, she spread fun, love and happiness to those around her, and she continues to do so now. The devastation of her loss to us, her family and friends, is immeasurable. The work to protect young people has started. It needs to be more. Juliet's impact on this world must be lasting change. Now is the time to ensure families are safe from the impacts of meningitis B." So clear calls there for more protection. As we know that babies do get offered the vaccination for meningitis B on the NHS, and they have been since 2015, but obviously that means that much of the UK's sort of older teenagers and uni students haven't got it. There are vaccinations for other forms of meningitis, but not meningitis B. But look, they're looking to roll out a more targeted version of this vaccine. They appear to suggest that so far the vaccine is effective in having the effects that they'd want it to, and more people are queuing up to go to these vaccination centres. More of them have opened this morning across Kent, and so far it does look like no official authority has said this, but it looks like it's contained to Kent. We did have one example of someone, a London student, who said that they'd had a confirmed case, but the UK Health Security Agency said that that was directly linked to the outbreak in Canterbury. But as we've been discussing, part of the problem at the moment is that lots of students are actually leaving Kent. They're leaving university early to go home for Easter because of what they're seeing. It's scary for people, clearly, but questions rising about how effective that could be if they're not contained in one place and actually are going back to other parts of the UK, perhaps home to see parents.
Absolutely.
Yeah, indeed. One to watch. We'll get regular updates.
Thanks,
Molly, thanks very much indeed.
Now, the number of people in Lebanon killed in Israeli attacks since the 2nd of March has passed 1,000. More than 1 million people have been displaced. Now, many of those are sheltering in public spaces, and the humanitarian need is rising rapidly.
Well, Israel says those displaced from southern Lebanon will not be allowed back to their homes until the IDF has dismantled Hezbollah's infrastructure in the region. Well, we're joined now by Bashir Ayoub, who's Oxfam's country director in Lebanon. Thanks so much for talking to us this morning. So it's a startling figure, more than 1 million people in Lebanon displaced. Tell us what's happened to them. Where have they gone?
Good morning. Thank you for having me. Unfortunately, it's the same sites that we saw 14 months ago. So many of the people that are leaving, predominantly the southern suburbs of Beirut and the north Bekaa, are either going to collective shelters set up by the government of Lebanon, staying with family members and friends. And unfortunately, there's some that are sleeping on the streets because there's just simply not enough space for them.
And in terms of the aid agencies on the ground, I know you guys are working on the ground. There are others in country as well. I spoke to a representative of the Norwegian Refugee Council just yesterday. What is the Lebanese government itself being able to do to support the million that have been displaced, if anything?
I mean, I think it's really important not to just look at the current war as an isolated incident. We just came out of a war 14 months ago. Lebanon has been struggling for many years now. There was the port explosion. The economy has pretty much collapsed. So the resources that the government has at its disposal is actually quite minimal. Where they have been quite effective has been in coordination through the Ministry of Social Affairs in establishing as many collective shelters as they have, which usually are made up of schools, public buildings, and where aid agencies like Oxfam come in, is to ensure that those that have been displaced are provided with all of the essential needs that they have in order to have a hopefully temporary and dignified stay.
Tell us a little bit more about the shelters that there are, what they're like to live in, what are the facilities like, and how crowded are they?
They are quite crowded. The difference between what's happening in this current conflict as opposed to the one that took place roughly a year ago is the displacement was spread throughout the country. The difference that we're seeing this time is it's slightly gradual, and the collective shelters to the north of the country have not been filled up yet. And what we're hearing from many of the people that are fleeing their homes in the south is that they feel that this displacement might be a little bit more permanent. This is based off of their observations of hospitals being bombed, bridges, gas stations, a lot of key infrastructure for them to be able to stay within their villages.
And that also because of the reporting that the Israelis might want to build what they describe as a buffer zone along their northern border to try and keep people out of them. I mean, how much resource do Oxfam and other agencies have in country at the moment to be able to help them? As you say, Bashir, you're coming out of having to deal with another war from just a year or so ago.
Yeah, and unfortunately, I was listening to a few of the stories before joining you guys. I mean, I think globally there is quite a lot of chaos and many people that are in need. What we're trying to do with the resources that we do have, and obviously a lot of that comes from Oxfam supporters worldwide, is to ensure that the people that we are able to reach, that we continue to be able to support them with most basic of items that they need in order to stay. it's basically reached a point that the more resources that we do have, the more people we will be able to help, because Oxfam to date, we hit the ground running the afternoon of the escalation. We have field teams throughout the country, and we're barely scratching the surface. We have reached close to 20,000 individuals, and you're speaking about 1 million displaced.
And we talk about the facilities available to them, you know, a roof over their head and food and water, but what about the psychological issues of people having to leave their homes, possibly for a second time?
Yeah, I mean, second or third time, that really doesn't go away. I'm a child, I'm Lebanese as well, so I grew up during the war. Shortly before I joined you guys as well, there were Israeli jets flying overhead that were breaking the sound barrier. So the mental toll that the already exhausted population is being exposed to is quite significant, and I don't imagine it'll be going away anytime soon. So we will, as Oxfam and definitely other international organizations that we coordinate with quite heavily, that is something that we will have to address and look at as much as we can, hopefully in the post-war period.
Okay, Bachir Ayub from Oxfam, thank you very much for joining us. All the best to you and best of luck in your work, Bachir. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
Extraordinary. A million people displaced in the country, about 5 million, that many of whom are refugees anyway from other places. It's just absolutely devastating.
Extraordinary and, you know, very difficult for them and a huge challenge for those trying to help as well. Jackie's joined us, as you can see. You've got the sport coming up.
Yep, Thomas Tuchel, very shortly after our programme, will announce his second-last England squad before the World Cup for the friendlies. We understand that Kobbie Mainoo will be included in that. First Man United player he has picked, if that's the case. Also, good night for English clubs in Europe last night. We'll show you a couple of goals too.
Well, hello, and thank you for watching The Wrap. Every night of the week, we will be joined by the very best commentators to explain the how and the why.
Just cannot stand.
Stupid thing to do.
He did know what he was doing.
You can expect more analysis.
This is going to get deeper. I think it's going to end up with Russia.
Is war inevitable?
What he's interested in is a deal.
That doesn't rule out strikes.
I disagree.
And laughs along the way. Plus, a look at tomorrow's headlines. The Wrap. Everything wrapped up for you from 10.
I'm Dominic Waghorn, Sky's International Affairs Editor, covering a world that seems to be unravelling. War, unrest, revolutions.
It's not his country, it's ours.
They have succeeded for the first time in their country's history in removing a leader from power.
No freedom!
Sky News, the full story first. There was fighting here, but there's clearly now a lull, and they're using it to bring up more ammunition. This is a mass exodus in which Russia is hemorrhaging some of its brightest and its best. According to the local weather channel, there have been more than 2,500 lightning strikes and flash flooding, all on top of this week's lethal tornado. What stays with you most in this job is some of the people you meet. What is your worst fear about what the Russians want to do to the children?
They're just boosting demographics by stealing young people.
Would you like to take the opportunity, Mr. President, on Sky News to invite Barack Obama to come here? Mr. Trump, are you running for president? Can you confirm it?
We're going to take a look, a very serious look.
On that day, we saw your fighters killing women, killing children. Was that a mistake? Did you go too far? You couldn't control your fighters? The full force of the state is being used to crush any protest. Free wherever you get your news. It's half an hour now past the deadline that Hamas issued, and we've now seen a third barrage of rockets coming in. Another alarm. The mood here is jittery and nervous. We're seeing the world get more and more divided, and it's our job to try to make sense of it all.
The best thing about being a Sky News journalist?
I'm going to take you behind the scenes here for Election Night Live. They have gone up and up.
Being a Sky News journalist.
Ed Conway, Sky News, is anyone going to talk to us? Mortgage rates did go up very sharply during your time in office. Here it is.
First off, just the scale of what we're looking at.
Our data shows it's been happening. Question is why it hasn't been stopped.
So I will introduce Jackie, because you won't be able to resist saying Nottingham Forest in the first sentence.
Speak about Forest.
We will talk about them later.
Until the right time.
Yeah, we will talk about Nottingham Forest, because it was a good night for them, for sure. But we just want to start with Thomas Tuchel, because his England squad will be announced shortly after this programme. 11 o'clock is his press conference, so maybe there'll be some hints before that. But we have already had the hint that Kobbie Mainoo is going to be included. Thomas Tuchel has not selected a single Manchester United player so far in his tenure as England manager, but Kobbie Mainoo reinstalled to the Man United squad and playing well under Michael Carrick. He will be, we understand, will be included. But the question is, will Harry Maguire perhaps also be included? Will he include Jude Bellingham, who's been injured but is sort of back from injury? There are obviously picks that just pick themselves, like Harry Kane and Declan Rice and Bukayo Saka and Jordan Pickford, all of those. But the list of who might be waiting to get on the plane to the World Cup is a massive list, and he's got to narrow it down.
And sometimes the World Cup's coming really quickly. It's kind of,
there's only 4 more matches, so you've got 2 friendlies before the end of this month, then 2 more friendlies, and then it's straight into World Cup matches. Again, first one against Croatia. So it is, well, time is ticking, and he's got to get it right. Now we're going to talk about Forest.
Go on then. Why not?
We haven't really said this very many times this season, but it was actually a really good night for Nottingham Forest. And obviously a huge match at the weekend against Spurs. They are flirting with relegation. Forest are flirting with relegation. It's a huge match. So they made 9 changes for their match in Europe last night in the Europa League. Here's a quick taste of the goals for you. So, Forest 1-0 down from the first leg against Midtjylland. Ryan Yates with a great strike to make it 2-0 on the night for Forest after Nicolas Dominguez had opened the scoring in Denmark. But even though they were in control, Midtjylland got a goal back to take the match to extra time and then to penalties. Forest penalties were very good. They scored their first 3, leaving Midtjylland having to score this to stay in the shootout because they'd missed their first 2. Their player fell over and Forest are through to play Porto. Aston Villa, good night for them last night. 2-0 winners against Lille, 3-0 over the 2 legs. John McGinn with the opening goal at Villa Park after quick thinking from Emi Martinez. And Unai Emery has won this competition 4 times. So will it be his year again? And in the Conference League, Crystal Palace are through to the quarterfinals after beating Larnaca 2-1 on the night after extra time. Ismail Assar with both goals. And Larnaca ending that match with 9 men. So always going to be a struggle. Do you remember the final of Euro 2021? I was there. And
yes, of course.
It was awful. Like the behaviour was.
I can safely say no. Can't you say? No. Carry on.
I was there at Wembley, and the behaviour of the fans, the England fans, was absolutely disgraceful. And one of the things that people said afterwards, who had tickets, said there were so many fans who charged that stadium and got in without tickets and sat in front of people who actually had tickets, and it was horrendous. Anyway, the law has finally come into being that you can no longer tailgate into a football stadium. So if you don't have a ticket, you can't rush in behind somebody else, because if you're caught, you're going to be fined up to £1,000 and you could be banned for 5 years from football. So this law has come into being in time for the Carabao Cup final at Wembley at the weekend. Which you'd have thought it would have been a law already. But,
you would have thought you can just bust your way into a football ground. And that wasn't the best night for England as well, sadly.
No. Well, you used to be able to, and now you can't.
Not so much.
Luke Littler last night won, which in itself is not,
groundbreaking
news.
All the time.
But it was week 7 of the Premier League of darts. He was 5-0 down in his match against Gerwyn Price, and he managed to win. So he came back from 5-0 down. I think we can have a look at the action, and he won 6-5.
There he is.
Amazing.
He said, "I have no idea how I've done that. I was gone."
I'm really good.
Yeah, I'm just really good. And we should just quickly mention Fran Jones, a British tennis player who beat her idol Venus Williams at the Miami Open last night in straight sets, and she bowed to her before she went to the net to shake her hand and then give her a big hug, because she said, she's the reason I play tennis. I had a picture of her on my wall with Serena when I was young. I was always told I couldn't play tennis because she only has 3 fingers on each hand. And she does play. And she's playing on the Pro Tour with Venus. She's 45.
It's awesome.
Her idol.
That's
really,
fantastic. Really cool. What a moment.
I know. Who was your idol? You had Starsky and Hutch on your wall. I had no posters on my wall, but I did really love Goldie Hawn. I thought posters were messy.
What kinds of footballers? I mean, oh God, who can we list? I mean,
I don't know. It's a question I'm asking in 10
mainly.
seconds.
I like the way
Thierry
Eric.
Henry.
Yeah, Thierry Henry. Why not?
Anyway, it was a nice moment.
It was. Thanks,
Top
Jackie.
Story's up next. Don't go away.
See you soon.
What's the best thing about being a Sky News presenter?
We've done the work and the reading, so you don't have to.
Being a Sky News presenter.
Hello and welcome. Westminster, the heart of British politics.
I'm so sorry about what happened to you.
So what on earth is going on?
It's not true.
Can I tell you what I think? It's really unusual. Mornings with Richard and Frost.
Let's crack on. Let's get started.